Chapter 421. Enemy Attack! Enemy Attack! Enemy Attack! The shrill roar echoed throughout the sand village. Be it the Sunagakure high-ranking officials, ordinary Sunagakure ninjas, or the civilians living in the Sunagakure village, all were terrified and furious. This is something I have never seen before. It has been more than 40 years since the ninja world entered the ninja village era. This is the first time that a ninja village at the level of the 5 major ninja villages has been attacked by ninjas from other villages. Moreover, the people who raided their sand village did not participate in the last ninja world war. They were from the Mist village, which was a million miles away from their sand village and had nothing to do with them. Even at this time, the sand village high-ranking officials, who had received accurate information from the sand village ninjas who had fought with the ground forces led by the Zigwashan Puffer demon near the Yuxiantian, were still somewhat incredulous. How did the hidden Mist village do it? This thought kept lingering in the minds of the sand village leaders. However, they no longer had the extra time to pay attention to this issue. It was no longer important how the Kirigakure ninjas managed to sneak past all the ninjas deployed by their sand village at various borders and quietly come to the front of their sand village. The important thing is that the Kirigakure ninjas have indeed arrived and have already reached the gate of their sand village. However, the next moment, they understood what the hidden Mist village relied on to be able to descend here silently. The huge shadow created by the Angkor fortress breaking through the clouds and descending, along with the surging waves caused by Yagura's full strength, fell from the sky and enveloped the sand village. The ninjas in the sand village who were preparing to go to Yuxiantian for support, as well as the sand village high-ranking officials who were hiding in the Kazekage building, were stunned for a moment when they saw this outrageous scene. It can be said that this is something most of them have never seen before. Only those veteran ninjas who had experienced the Warring States period and the First Ninja World War, and witnessed the second Hokage of Konoha village, Tobirama Senju, and the first Mizukage of the hidden Mist village, Byakuren, perform water-based ninjutsu on this scale, could have seen such a large scale. And the huge fortress that can fly in the air is also known only by the ninjas who have heard of the existence of the Land of the Sky and experienced the incident of the Land of the Sky challenging the 5 major ninja villages. However, there are only a few sand ninjas who have had these experiences and are still alive at this moment. Therefore, most of the young sand ninjas can't help but feel a sense of despair and powerlessness in their hearts. After all, the top fighters of the sand village are not in the sand village at this moment. They don't have the slightest confidence to face such a terrible enemy, even if the enemy has already entered their homes. However, the more critical the moment, the more likely it is that there will be heroes who step forward. At the moment when the massive flood was about to crash into the sand village, a light shout that was somewhat cold and gentle overwhelmed the noise caused by the landing of Angkor Fortress and the roar brought by the flood. With the blessing of Chakra, it resounded throughout the sand village. Wind escape empty sand barrier. Endless sand floated up from the ground and gathered above the sand village, completely covering the entire sand village. At the same time, it also received Yagura's attack. Although the flood rushing down from the sky carried enormous kinetic energy and impact force, thanks to the fact that the sand village lacked everything except sand, especially sand with high mineral hardness, the air sand defense wall burst out with extraordinary defensive power, blocking the surging flood for nearly 5 seconds before it was finally broken through. But this is enough. After being blocked by the empty sand defense wall, the power of the Isofa waterfall has been reduced by 70% to 80%, not to mention that the sand has also absorbed a lot of water. You know, the main threat of this move to the sand village comes from its extraordinary scale and the impact force accumulated from falling from a high altitude. It's Lord Karura. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed sand village ninja saw the figure with short sandy brown hair half kneeling on a roof, breathing heavily, and shouted loudly that he had survived the disaster. For a moment, the other sand village ninjas also burst into heated discussions after escaping death. Great! Lord Karura is here. We're saved. As expected of Lord Karura. Long live Lord Karura! It turned out that the one who had just blocked Yagura's attack was Karula, the wife of the 4th Kazekage Raza. However, she was able to block Yagura's attack only because she took advantage of the sand village's geographical location, and her own strength was at best just that of an elite jonin. Moreover, her empty sand defense wall that covered the entire sand village consumed nearly 2/3 of her chakra. The original work does not specify whether Karula is a ninja, and the introduction of Karula in the Book of Formations does not mention this, but according to the conversation between Raza and Gaara during the 4th Ninja World War, it can be learned that the reason why Raza automatically protects Gaara is not because of the one-tailed Shikaku in Gaara's body, but the power of protection left by Gaara's mother Karula. However, if he was able to leave the power of sand to protect Gaara, then at least Karura himself should be able to manipulate sand, and his strength should not be too weak. Chapter 422. Seeing that the attack did not have the expected effect, Yagura smiled indifferently. However, his smile was a little hideous because of the tailed beast chakra coat covering his face. For Yagura, if the water jutsu was blocked, it was blocked, because he didn't expect to destroy the sand village with a sudden water jutsu. After all, no matter how weak the sand village is, it is still one of the 5 major ninja villages, and it still has the necessary foundation. His original purpose was just to make a friendly greeting to the sand village. If it could be accomplished, it would be accomplished. If not, it would not be accomplished. At least, the mist ninjas behind him could take advantage of this massive flood and rush directly from Angkor Fortress into the sand village, destroy the center of the sand village, and then cooperate with the ground forces led by Zigwashan Puffer Demon who rushed in from the narrow gap to strangle all the sand village ninjas. The top leaders of sand village finally reacted at this time, and immediately, as quickly as possible, passed on the news that sand village had been stolen by the mist village to the 4th Kazekage Raza, who was pulling back and forth between the front line and Konoha village, as well as the advisory elders Cho and Ebizo, and asked them to quickly lead a large force to return for support. However, the sand village's top leaders didn't know that after the sand village's barrier was broken, their every move was exposed to the perception of Uzumaki Shinki who had already locked onto them, and to the Byakugan of Otsutsuki Mukai. Therefore, with the dual confirmation of Uzumaki Shinki's Kagura Heart's Eye and Tsutsuki Mukai's Baigan, that is, the next second after the Tsunagaku high-level officials sent a message for help to the front line, a fiery red barrier wall rose up simultaneously from 4 directions outside the Tsunagaku village. Ninja Technique 4 Red Sun Formation. Even though the Kirigakure ninjas responsible for casting the barrier do not have the strength of a cage, but don't forget that the one in charge of presiding over the barrier is the Uzumaki clan's patriarch, Uzumaki Shinki, and there are also members of the Uzumaki clan in the other 3 directions. Therefore, this 4 Red Yang formation can be said to have been successfully performed under the leadership of the Uzumaki clan, by gathering all the chakras of the members of the barrier class and the sealing class. For the Uzumaki clan, who are good at sealing techniques, it is not a difficult task to cast the 4 Red Yang formation, a barrier that requires 4 cage-level strong men, through this kind of multi-person collaboration. You know, the members of the Uzumaki clan are famous in the ninja world for their huge amount of chakra. After the 4 Red Yang formation completely surrounded the sand village, Uzumaki Shinki kept moving his hands, continued to make seals, and immediately performed another barrier ninjutsu. Ninjutsu, Locking Sky Formation. This is the barrier inherited from the Uzumaki clan's sealing technique, specifically used to block the effectiveness of the spiritual summoning technique. According to the plan made by Kiyoshi, after Uzumaki Shinki passes the message to the front line in Sand Village, he will immediately cast a barrier to cut off all contact between Sand Village and the outside world. For the Sand Village that does not have long-distance chakra radio technology, if they want to deliver the message to Raza and others on the front line in a timely and rapid manner, they can only use the summoning technique to achieve the rapid transmission of information. And this has just been confirmed. After all, the action of the Tsunagaku high level using the spiritual summoning technique to transmit messages was completely seen by Otsutsuki Mukai. According to the plan made by Kingji, the 4 Red Yang formation is to prevent any Sand Village ninja from escaping, while the Locking Space formation is to block the Sand Village from passing on subsequent information and prevent the Sand Village ninjas on the front line from giving up rescuing the Sand Village after learning the news of the Sand Village's fall halfway. After all, with the lineup sent by the Hidden Mist Village, there was no suspense that they would be able to take down the Hidden Sand Village before the 4th Kazekage Raza led his team back for support. You know, even if Luo Sha immediately led the team back from the border front at full speed regardless of chakra consumption after receiving the news, it would still take at least half a day. And this time is enough for the Hidden Mist Village to repeatedly destroy the undermanned Sand Village several times. Therefore, we must never let Luo Sha and others who came back to provide reinforcements know the news of the loss of the Sand Village. After all, what Kingji wanted was to use the Sand Village as bait to capture all the Sand Village ninjas in one fell swoop. Mist Village. Follow me. Yagura waved his hand below, then took the lead and stepped on the turbulent torrent he created, rushing towards the Sand Village below at a high speed. At this time, the dark red-tailed beast chakra condensed on his body surface became more and more dense. The group of Kirigakure ninjas standing behind Yagura, who had been ready to fight for a long time, couldn't help but roar in unison with excitement after hearing Yagura's order. Then they followed Yagura and walked on the waves at the same speed, rushing towards the sand village below like a tiger descending from the mountain. Finally! Now you can fight to your heart's content. I finally came back from the village. I just arrived in Beijing at a little after 11 o'clock. I will write one chapter first and continue tomorrow. Chapter 423. Lord Yagura. At the 5 o'clock direction, about 130 meters away, there is a large amount of chakra reaction. Yagura, who had just landed in the sand village following the flood, heard in real time the precise positioning of the sand village ninjas by Uzumaki Kana. With the super perception of the Kagura Heart's Eye, and the addition of several Otsutsuki clan members from the Hidden Mist village who used their Byakugan to help her calculate the exact distance, as well as the perception water ball constructed together with other perception team ninjas, Uzumaki Kana was like having a god's perspective, and could see everything in the hidden sand village clearly, and she passed the information in an orderly manner to the Hidden Mist ninjas fighting in the hidden sand village. So, when the sand village ninja was about to rush towards Yagura who had just landed, Yagura used his water style, exploding water wave to break the opponent's formation into pieces. Just as Yagura was about to perform the next ninjutsu to clear the sand village ninjas in front of him, Uzumaki Kana's voice rang in his ears again, Lord Yagura. The top of the house at 8 o'clock. About 200 meters away. According to the intelligence, it should be Karula, the wife of the 4th Kazekage Raza. It was she who blocked the water jutsu attack just now. Yagura's eyes suddenly lit up after hearing this. Very good. Finally, there's someone who can be considered a heavyweight. Immediately, Yagura fell to the ground, supporting himself with his limbs, and then his chakra burst out instantly, shooting towards Karula, who was still on the roof gasping for breath due to excessive chakra consumption. Protect Master Karura! Master Karura, be careful! Other nearby sand village ninjas saw Yagura's actions and hurriedly shouted to warn Karura, who had not yet noticed that Yagura was attacking him. At the same time, several ninjas dressed in sand village Anbu uniforms also waved their ninja swords and tried to intercept Yagura who was rushing towards them at a high speed. It was none other than the elite Anbu team that the 4th Kazekage Raza had arranged to protect his wife. After receiving the timely reminder, Karula quickly adjusted her state and stood up, quickly putting her hands together. The little chakra left in her body quickly flowed through her meridians, and a large amount of sand floated up and surrounded her body. I saw her stroking her belly gently, and the expression on her face gradually turned cold, and then became firm. Lord Karula, is it? An Anbu appeared beside her, wanting to say something but stopping himself. After all, the order given to their team by Luo Sha was to protect his wife who had just become pregnant again. However, looking at Karula's expression and movements, this Anbu knew that he could not stop Karula's will. It was obvious that Karula wanted to fight and refused to retreat. For Karula, this is the village that her husband, the 4th Kazekage, Raza, has to protect. As the wife of the Kazekage, she cannot retreat when the Kazekage is not in the village, even if she is pregnant at the moment. Take Temari away. Protect her. Karula said word by word to the Anbu beside him. Her and Raza's eldest daughter, Temari, was born on August 4 RD in the 8th year of Kirigakure. She was less than half a year old at this time and was sleeping soundly in the house under her. Just now, when she realized something was wrong and used the empty sand defense wall, she also used sand to reinforce the house she was in and isolated the sound. Therefore, her daughter Temari was not awakened by the sound of the battle. However, Karula also knew that if she didn't send Temari away and eliminate this worry, she would not be able to fight with all her strength, and the Three Tails Jinchuriki Yagura was rushing towards her at this time. Therefore, she could only leave this task to the Anbu who were responsible for protecting her. As for Yagura who was rushing towards her at a high speed, as the wife of the Kazekage and a high-ranking member of the Tsunagakure, she could of course recognize him at a glance. After all, the information that the Three Tails Jinchuriki was the Mizukage assisting Yagura Karatachi was no longer a secret information, considering Yagura had taken action several times over the years. Similarly, looking at Yagura's undisguised straight-line movements, she knew that the other party must have recognized her identity. Then, there was no way he would miss the opportunity to kill her, the wife of the 4th Kazekage. The Anbu nodded in agreement and immediately left. Since he couldn't stop Lady Karula from participating in the battle, he could only obey Lady Karula's orders, send her child to a safe place first, and then return to protect Lady Karula. On the other side, Otsutsuki Mukai and the clansmen who followed him had already set up a barrier to protect Uzumaki Shinki, and then joined up with the ground forces led by Zigwashin Pufferfish Demon who attacked the sand village from the direction of Uxiantian. After his Byakugan was further purified and he acquired the Bigan Intimidation Eye technique, Otsutsuki Mukai's strength has changed tremendously compared to the past. In addition, he is now a member of the Otsutsuki clan of the Hidden Mist Village. Therefore, in this operation, his authority is relatively high. The ear-hanging chakraphone he wears can allow him to hear the instructions given by Uzumaki Kana to others. Listening to Uzumaki Kana constantly reporting the location and approximate strength level of the Sand Village ninjas, Otsutsuki Mukai finally understood what Otsutsuki Tenshin meant by the perfect configuration she had told him at the time. It has to be said that the two abilities of the Byakugan and Kagura's Heart's Eye, combined with the ear-hanging chakraphone that can allow ninjas on the battlefield to receive commands in real time, are a perfect match in a war of this scale. Chapter 424 Lord Mukai. There are 3 Sand Village puppeteers lying in ambush about 200 meters to the left front. Their chakra strength is slightly greater than that of ordinary Chunins. Uzumaki Kana gave orders again. After hearing Uzumaki Kana's report, Otsutsuki Mukai turned around directly, quickly locked onto the enemy's position with his Byakugan, and then launched an ultra-long-range 8 trigrams empty palm attack, severely injuring the 3 puppeteers who thought they were hiding very well. Although Otsutsuki Mukai also has the Byakugan, he needs to use it to constantly see and observe in order to find the hiding places of the Sand Village ninjas. Now, with the perception and guidance of Uzumaki Kana, he can capture the enemy's position without any effort, so of course he doesn't need to go to the trouble of looking for it himself. Isn't it great if there is a hook? As the ground forces led by Zigwashin Puffer Demon attacked the Sand Village through the narrow gap, the sounds of shouting and fighting were everywhere, and countless gorgeous ninjutsu broke out in various parts of the Sand Village and flew all over the sky. At this moment, the entire Sand Village was in chaos. Keep in battle formation. Follow the command and eliminate the stubborn sand ninjas one by one. The rest of the ninja swordsmen, follow me. Zigwashin Puffer Demon revealed a bloodthirsty grin and gave loud orders in the communication channel. Yes. The group of mist ninjas following behind him answered in unison, and then under the command of Uzumaki Kana, they gradually dispersed in the Sand Village, finding out the sand ninjas one by one, and either beating them severely so that they had no strength to fight again, or directly eliminating them on the spot. Damn it! How dare those bastards from the Hidden Mist Village come across such a distance to attack my Hidden Sand Village? Luo Sha, who was traveling at full speed on the mat formed by magnetic release, gold sand, had an expression of indescribable anger, gloom, and uneasiness on his face. He didn't understand why the Hidden Mist Village would come all the way to launch a surprise attack on their Hidden Sand Village. Whether from the perspective of attack distance or war interests, it should not be the turn of the Sand Village. From a normal strategic perspective, isn't it more cost-effective to attack Konoha or Kirigakure? But it just happened that their Sand Village became the first target of the Mist Village after it participated in the Ninja World War again after many years. This made Luo Sha rack his brains, but he couldn't figure it out. His own family knows their own business. As the 4th Kazekage of the Sand Village, he is very clear about the overall strength of their Sand Village now. You know, in order to divert the internal conflicts in the village caused by the disappearance of the 3rd Kazekage, the war launched by the Sand Village against the Konoha village can be said to have put most of their combat power into it. Now, the war between Sand Village and Konoha village is still in a stalemate. Most of the combat forces of Sand Village are on the front line, and there are only a small number of ninjas left in the village. And there are not many strong ones. The only cage-level strong one is Yekeng, who returned to the village to recuperate because of injury. Luo Shan knew in his heart that their Sand Village was now in danger. It can be said that the surprise attack by the Hidden Mist Village really hit the pain point of the Hidden Sand Village and also hit Raza's weak spot, leaving him with no way to remedy the situation. Originally, there were ninjas from the border between the Wind Country and the Earth Country who were guarding the Uegakure village who could be transferred, but unfortunately, not long ago, Ebizo Gang reached an agreement on behalf of the Sand Village and the Uegakure village, and brought those ninjas to the front line with Konoha. This resulted in Raza having no other forces at hand to rescue the Sand Village from crisis, and he was forced to withdraw from the war with Konoha village and return to the Sand Village immediately. However, seeing that all the members of the Sand Village were retreating, although the Konoha village didn't know what had happened, how could they miss this opportunity to strike back at the man who was down? Therefore, Konoha was also very cautious. They sent out Minato Namikaze, who possessed the Flying Thunder God technique and could move freely on the battlefield, to carry out continuous raids and harassment on the Sand Village troops. In desperation, Luo Sha could only choose to let a small number of Sand ninjas stay behind to cover the rapid evacuation of the main force. There is no other way. If they don't get rid of the Konoha ninjas as soon as possible, once Konoha gets the relevant information, Konoha will definitely not let them return to the Sand Village for support. The turning point of the matter, in essence, was the disappearance of the one-tailed Jinchuriki Banfuku along the way. It can be said that after the Sand Village lost the one-tailed Shikaku, all of their plans have come to naught. Of course, Raza had also thought about abandoning the Sand Village. After all, as long as he, the fourth Kazekage, was still there, and as long as the elite ninjas under his command were still there, rebuilding a new village would be a piece of cake. But, he can't do it. Not to mention that the wives, children, and elders of the Sand Village ninjas under his command are all in the Sand Village, even his own wife and daughter, and his unborn second child, are also in the Sand Village. Therefore, Luo Sha was extremely confused at this time, and he wished he could lead the large army back to the Sand Village immediately. Although Luo Sha didn't know at this time that the Hidden Mist Village came with the purpose of destroying their Sand Village, but just by looking at the information passed down by the village's top leaders, Luo Sha could imagine how critical the Sand Village was at this time. From the intelligence received, they learned that every one of the Kirigakure ninjas who came to raid their Sand Village were elite, not to mention that among them were the 3 Tails Jinchuriki and the 7 ninja swordsmen, who were already famous in the ninja world. However, Luo Sha did have a certain degree of confidence. As long as he led the ninjas under his command back to the Sand Village, it would not be an empty talk to destroy all the attacking Mist Village ninjas. After all, this is the land of wind. It's the home turf of the Sand Village ninjas. Moreover, he is a cage-level warrior who has mastered the magnetic release, gold dust. It can be said that as long as he is in the desert, he is fearless. This is the confidence of him as a cage-level strong man, the 4th Kazekage of the Sand Village. Chapter 425. At the same time when a war broke out in the Sand Village, the 4th Kazekage Raza led the Sand Village troops desperately rushing back to the Sand Village, and the Konoha side followed and harassed them. CG returned to his loyal Kirigakure village with his spoils, the 4 Tails Jinchuriki Lao Shi from the Uegakure village. Boom! Lao Zi was released from the Takamaji-Hara space by Kingxi. He twisted and rolled several times in the air, and was thrown to the ground casually like a piece of rag, making a dull sound. Well! Lao Zi let out an indistinct cry of pain unconsciously. Both he, who was stubborn, and the 4-tailed Sun Wukong in his body, were beaten badly by Qing Si. Chief Otsutsuki Tenshin, who sensed the appearance of Kyoji and heard the sound of Lao Zi falling to the ground, hurried out of the room and came to greet him, accompanied by Otsutsuki Gara, who was holding the little servant in his arms. Yet, Kingxi nodded, turned his gaze to the little servant in Otsutsuki Gara's arms, and a gentle look appeared on his face. At the same time, he pointed at Lao Zi who was thrown on the ground by him, and ordered Otsutsuki Tenshin, detain him in your police department first. When Nagato and Xiaoming come back, you will be responsible for sealing him together with them. Yes. Otsutsuki Tenshin understood instantly and replied respectfully. The moment he saw Lao Zi, he had already recognized Lao Zi's identity as the 4 Tails Jinchuriki. Although Otsutsuki Tenshin knew from the day he followed Seiji that Seiji's strength was beyond his reach, after all, Lao Zi was a well-known cage-level strongman in the ninja world, and he could even use the power of the tailed beast in his body to fight. But seeing that the 4 Tails Jinchuriki was now captured by his own family leader as easily as catching a chicken, he was shocked once again in his heart. Of course, he knew that his family head was already a legendary 6 Paths level powerhouse, but he had never actually seen a 6 Paths level powerhouse in action, nor did he understand how terrifyingly powerful a 6 Paths level powerhouse was. Therefore, he was so shocked when Kingxi brought back the half-beaten Lao Zi not long after he left the village. It can be said that his cognition was constantly refreshed by Kingxi again and again. Kingxi glanced at Otsutsuki Tenshin's increasingly respectful expression, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This feeling of showing off one's saintliness inadvertently is quite good. Afterwards, Kyoji ignored Otsutsuki Tenshin's subsequent actions towards Lao Zi, and instead focused his attention on teasing the cute little Tonari in Otsutsuki Gara's arms. This is the purest cub of the Otsutsuki clan in their Kirigakure. You know, the concentration of Otsutsuki Tonari's blood is comparable to that of Otsutsuki Hamura. Even in the Starry Sky Otsutsuki clan, it is not bad. It can even be said that Otsutsuki Tonari was a real Otsutsuki as soon as he was born. And, more importantly, the purity of Otsutsuki Tonari's Byakugan is also extremely high. According to Otsutsuki Tenshin's estimation, Tonari's Byakugan purity is comparable to the patriarchs of the main and branch Otsutsuki clan on the moon. This means that Otsutsuki Tonari has the potential to awaken the Rinnegan. In Kiyoshi's eyes, as long as Otsutsuki Tonari can grow step by step, his strength will at least be at the 6 paths level. And when Tonari's Samsara Eye awakens, he can be considered a strong man even among the 6 paths level. Therefore, in the future, Sharon can be said to be his best helper. Even if there are other ignorant Otsutsuki who visit the ninja world, with the power of him, Kagaya and Tonari, they have nothing to fear. Not to mention, he can also wait for Tonari to grow up and then leave him in the ninja world to look after the house. In this way, he and Kagaya can go out and roam in the starry sky. While Seiji and Kodato were playing, Anbu Chieftain suddenly appeared in the courtyard. Lord Mizukage! Urgent call from the Fire Nation. Sword's voice had a hint of urgency. Kingxi turned around and looked at Jian, raised his eyebrows, and looked a little confused and surprised. Did something unexpected happen? Jian didn't explain much, but directly handed the telegram in his hand to Kingxi. Ching Si reached out to take it, then quickly glanced around and read the telegram in a moment. He finally understood why Jian was a little anxious. Indeed, the strategic plan for the raid on the Sand Village was basically formulated by Kiyoshi, and the other top leaders of the Kirigakure only perfected some minor details. Therefore, when an unexpected situation that was not in the plan and was likely to affect the plan occurred, he, the Mizukage, still needed to make the decision. After all, Jian is only the head of the Anbu. Both his vision and ability have been limited by the Anbu. It turned out that this was an urgent telegram from White Zetsu, who was obtaining intelligence from the Land of Fire. The spy from Konoha village who was lurking in the Sand village immediately took prompt action when the Mist village launched an attack and sent the news back to Konoha village before Uzumaki Shinki's barrier was completed. Therefore, Konoha has now learned the news that the Sand village has been stolen. As for the Konoha ninjas such as Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Minato Namikaze who were on the front line, even if they had not received the news when the Sand village retreated, they would probably have received emergency information from the Konoha village while chasing the Sand village ninjas. So, there are two possibilities. First, Konoha village will continue to beat the retreating Sand village ninjas, and even increase their efforts, from the current harassment and raids carried out by Minato Namikaze alone to a direct attack by the entire army. The second is that Konoha village chooses to give up pursuing the Sand village and quickly reaches an agreement with the Sand village. It is even possible that given Sarutobi Hiruzen's character, he will help the Sand village in return. You know, war is war, hatred is hatred, but behind everything are actually interests. Therefore, it is very likely that Konoha village will not sit idly by and watch the Sand village being conquered by the Mist village. After all, a weak Sand village that can only follow behind Konoha and act as a younger brother is what Konoha village wants more. However, Kiyoshi currently has no way of knowing Konoha's choice, because White Zetsu is not yet in a position in Konoha village to be able to obtain such information. It is already the limit for him to be able to find out that Konoha already knows that the Sand village has been stolen. But for Kingxi, this is not a big deal. After all, he and Jian are in different positions, have different perspectives on things, and can take different measures. Of course, if this kind of thing happened to the third Mizukage Bing, he would come to the same conclusion as Kiyoshi and take the same action, but Kiyoshi, the fourth Mizukage, was in the village at the time after all, so Ken would certainly not be so tactless as to go find the previous Mizukage Bing first. After thinking for a moment, Kingxi took his sword and used the eye technique Takamaji Ehara to go directly to the communication team of the Anbu. Although he and Ken also carried portable chakra telegraphs, after all, everyone has their own expertise, and neither of them could be considered a professional communications ninja. It would be more convenient and faster for them to go directly to the Anbu. Send a radio message to Angkor Fortress. Ask about the progress of the frontline attack. Kingxi waved to several ninjas from the communications squad who stood up when they saw him and Jian coming, and gave a light order. Yes. The communications squad ninja responded with a serious face, then his hands flashed quickly on the telegraph machine, transmitting Kingxi's order to the Angkor Fortress. Chapter 426 Looking at Yagura, who was galloping along the way with great momentum and using his chakra tail to lightly swat away the blocking sand village Anbu members like swatting flies, Karula's pupils couldn't help but shrink. She knew that the Mizuki's assistant, who was the Three Tails Jinchuriki, was very powerful, but she did not expect that these elite Anbu soldiers who were responsible for protecting her could not even delay Yagura's steps for a moment. Therefore, she gave up accumulating chakra and preparing to perform ninjutsu, and exploded directly. Sand style, sand rain. Countless tiny grains of sand floating around Karula suddenly gathered together under the burst of her chakra, and instantly formed a large number of round sand bombs of almost the same size. Boo! Ha! Ha! Then, accompanied by a sharp sound of breaking through the air, the sand bullet suddenly flew forward at an astonishing speed like a bullet with a ignited primer, like a high-speed machine gun, constantly spitting out deadly bullets, carrying powerful penetrating power and madly sweeping towards Yagura. Looking at the sand bullets that were shooting at him, Yagura had no intention of dodging at all. Instead, he continued to accelerate towards Karula. At the same time, a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth covered by the dark red-tailed beast's coat. It seems that the intelligence collected about the sand village is still not enough. Yagura exerted force on all four of his limbs at the same time, his body instantly flew into the air while his hands quickly formed seals. Immediately, a huge hand formed by the chakra of the tailed beast suddenly appeared behind him, dancing rhythmically in the air. Water style, water mirror technique. A huge dark red water mirror appeared in the air in the blink of an eye, and then a dark red figure that looked exactly like Karura emerged from it. Immediately following, it was the sand rain that was no different from the one Karura used. Boom! The sand bombs, which look exactly the same and have the same power, are like tiny meteors, constantly colliding in the air. Every violent collision will cause a deafening explosion, as if thunder has exploded in the sky. The continuous sounds of collision were chaotically intertwined, and countless fine dust particles filled the air, like smoke, lingering and greatly affecting the vision of the two people. However, this was not a problem for Yagura, who had off-field assistance. He still had a firm grasp on Karula's location. So, while continuing to charge, Yagura opened his mouth and spit out another small-tailed beast ball that was condensed in an instant, which went straight to Karula with a destructive and oppressive aura. On the other hand, Karura felt something was wrong the moment Yagura replicated her Tsunashijure. However, all this happened in a flash. Even if she had realized something was wrong, it was too late for her to make hand seals or change her moves to make an effective response. In addition, her vision was blocked, and her perception ability, which was not very strong to begin with, was disturbed by the chaotic chakra fluctuations caused by the collision between the sand bullets. She had even less chance to make any response. Therefore, it was not until Yagura's tailed beast ball, which was following closely behind her, was not far away from her that she suddenly realized. Although Shikaku, the one-tailed beast, has not gone berserk over the years, Karura is still a high-ranking member of the Kirigakure clan. Even if she has not eaten pork, she has seen pigs run. Therefore, she is actually not unfamiliar with the tailed beast ball. So, feeling the fatal threat, Karura endured the dull pain in his meridians caused by the chakra bursting out again, and formed a defense before Yagura's tailed beast ball exploded. Sand release sand desert wave. A thick spherical sand wall quickly condensed and protected Karura firmly inside it. The next second, a loud bang exploded in front of Jiaoluo, blowing everything around it to pieces. The house where Jiaoluo was originally in was of course not spared either. It completely collapsed in less than 1/10 of a second. Although Yagura's tailed beast ball was not charged at all and was a small-scale tailed beast ball that was instantly fired, its power was slightly weaker than that of a regular tailed beast ball, but no matter how weak it was not something that could be resisted by the defense formed in a hurry by Karura, a ninja whose strength was not even at the cage level. It has not been clarified whether Karura's sand manipulation jutsu is magnetic ninjutsu, but it is speculated that it is most likely just an ordinary sand manipulation jutsu created by the second-generation Kazekage shaman after studying the one-tailed Shikaku. Perhaps it can be called sand ninjutsu. In episodes 626 and 629 of the original anime, there were two sand ninjas who used sand release, namely the female candidate Sana and the male candidate Shishio. Chapter 427. Where the tailed beast ball exploded, Karula's figure was thrown out along with the shattered sand wall, and then fell heavily on the ground not far away, blood constantly overflowing and dripping from the corners of his mouth. Yagura looked at Karula, who was blown away without any intention of showing any sympathy to her. He could sense that Carula's vitality was still very strong at this moment. Therefore, take advantage of her illness and kill her. Yagura remained in a prone position, and once again exerted force with his limbs, rushing straight towards Carula. In less than a breath, he had already closed the half-distance. Seeing this, Carula, who was lying on the ground, did not sit there and wait for death. She endured the severe pain all over her body, turned sideways, covered her stomach with one hand, and aimed the other hand at Yagura, who was in half-tailed beast form and was rushing towards her quickly, and slapped the ground hard. She is the wife of Raza, the fourth Kazekage of the Sand Village. How could I choose to admit defeat? However, it must be said that the ninja's physique is extraordinary, and the chakra also plays a certain protective role. Even though Carula suffered such a shock, the fetus in her belly was not affected at all. But if this happened to an ordinary person, the aftermath of the explosion would probably cause miscarriage. Desert Rebel Slave. Two huge hands of sand appeared on both sides of the path that Yagura had to pass, and then they closed together the moment Yagura passed by, trapping Yagura in the middle. At the same time, Carula, who was forcing himself to use this move despite his injuries and meridians that had not yet recovered to normal, finally couldn't stand the backlash of torn meridians and couldn't suppress the surging blood in his body, and he directly spat out a large mouthful of scarlet blood. But then, Carula clenched her teeth and swallowed the remaining blood foam in her mouth. After taking a deep breath, she continued to output her chakra and performed the next ninjutsu without hesitation. At this moment, Carula's face was as pale as paper, but her eyes were burning with an unyielding fire and were full of determination. The information has been delivered in time, she must hold on until Luo Sha comes back. However, the gap in strength will not change because of Carula's will. Even though she is located in the Sand Village, which is the best place for her to perform sand style, and her strength is enhanced due to the geographical advantage, this is not enough to make up for the gap between her and Yagura. If Yagura was just an ordinary cage, then even if he mastered the bug-level water mirror technique passed down secretly by the Karatagi clan, it would not be enough for him to crush Carula. However, there is no if here. Yagura not only has his own strength reached the level of cage, but he is also the three-tailed Jinchuriki of the Hidden Mist Village. Moreover, his three-tailed Jinchuriki is not an ordinary Jinchuriki, but a perfect Jinchuriki who can fully exert the full power of the three-tailed Isabu. Sand Style, Sand Funeral. Carula's eyes became fierce, and he stretched out his hand and clenched his 5 fingers towards the 2 huge sand hands that surrounded Yagura, as if he wanted to crush the air. Suddenly, the 2 sand hands, with endless pressure, squeezed towards Yagura in the middle, trying to crush him into powder. Oh! I've been underestimated. Even though this is Sand's home ground, I'm the Three Tails Jinchuriki, Yagura Kiruta. Yagura, who was temporarily trapped in Sand's hand, had his mind racing. The next second, several dark red chakra arms stretched out from various parts of Yagura's tailed beast chakra coat, resisting the hands of Sand that were constantly squeezing towards the center. Break! Along with Yagura's light shout, the 3 tails chakra suddenly burst out, and the torrent of tailed beast chakra surged around with Yagura's body as the center. In just a blink of an eye, it disintegrated Carula's almost desperate attack. Boom! The seemingly extremely solid hand of Sand was violently broken by Yagura, and countless tiny grains of sand flew around like wild horses. The air was full of flying sand, which was a spectacular sight. Afterwards, Yagura quickly dodged and approached Carula, whose chakra was almost exhausted, and knocked him unconscious with just a light blow. Since the opponent no longer has the strength to fight, there is no need for him to kill him. Although he is an enemy, he is not cruel enough to do such an outrageous thing as killing 2 people at once. Besides, keeping her is also a good bargaining chip, and it must be a heavy blow to Luo She who is about to return. So, after Yagura sealed Carula, he called on China no Hojiki who was fighting nearby to treat Carula. At this moment, Uzumaki Kana's voice rang out again from his ear-mounted chakraphone, Lord Yagura. Lord Mizukage is calling to inquire about the progress of the operation. Chapter 428. Call back Lord Mizukage. We have captured Carula, the wife of the 4th Kazekage Raza. The offensive on the battlefield is going smoothly. We expect that the Sand Village will be completely under our control within 2 hours. After hearing this, Yagura gave a slightly cautious answer. According to his estimation, with the help of the God's perspective, the offensive of the Kirigakure ninjas in the Sand Village can be said to be unusually smooth. Not to mention that the ninjas from the Kirigakure who took part in the battle this time were at least special jonin, and there were even 10 cage level strong men. Just looking at the strength of these old, weak, sick, and disabled people who stayed behind in the sand village, plus at most a few elite Anbu members and some family ninjas secretly hidden by the ninja clan, it is simply impossible for them to resist the mist village for too long. Therefore, Yagura was confident that he could lead a group of Kirigakure ninjas to quickly resolve the battle in a short period of time and completely clean up the interior of the sand village. However, when responding to Kiyoshi, Yagura still chose to play it safe. After all, the sand village is still the home ground of the sand village ninja. If he fails to get things done within the time he said, who knows how Kiyoshi will laugh at him when he returns to the village. Therefore, Yagura postponed the time a little bit and asked Uzumaki Kana to reply to CG within 2 hours. While Yagura and Kana were talking, Konan and Yahiko, who were acting together, quickly approached here in a few jumps. Yahiko was holding a bloody sand village Anbu in his hand, while Konan was holding a crying baby in her arms. It was Temari, Karuna's daughter who had just been sent away not long ago. It turned out that after Karula's identity was recognized, Uzumaki Kana focused most of her attention on her. Therefore, Karula's arrangement of ordering the Anbu to send Temari to the rear was completely within Uzumaki Kana's perception and the Otsutsuki clan's disdain. So, Yahiko and Konan, who happened to be not far from here, intercepted the sand village Anbu halfway to the shelter under the command of Uzumaki Kana, and with the tacit cooperation of the two, it took only a few rounds to beat the sand village Anbu half to death, and then the two brought the sand village Anbu and Temari here together. Lord Yagura. Lord Mizukage called back. He asked us to capture the sand village within an hour. Kiyoshi's reply, relayed by Uzumaki Kana, echoed in Yagura's ears, according to the latest intelligence. Konoha has learned of our actions. Lord Mizukage speculated that Konoha village is likely to stop us from completely destroying the sand village. Yagura looked enlightened when he heard this. No wonder Kiyoshi limited the time to half an hour. It turned out that he was worried about possible interference from Konoha. If the Konoha side gets involved, then they will have to be more fully prepared for their attack on Raza, Cho, Ebizo, and others who have come to support them. If they continue to follow the original plan and time, it is very likely that they will not be able to annihilate or capture all of Raza and others, and some of them will slip through the net. Therefore, Yagura immediately ordered all the Kirigakure ninjas to speed up the process and try their best to clean up the sand village and take complete control of the sand village as quickly as possible. After all, only after the sand village is completely under the control of their mist village can they focus all their energy on dealing with the sand village elite led by Raza who are coming back to reinforce the sand village. On the other side, after a 8 trigrams, empty palm attack severely injured 3 sand village puppeteers who were in ambush, Otsutsuki Mukai, with several Kirigakure jonin, had arrived near the sand village hospital according to the location given by Uzumaki Kana. Just when Otsutsuki Mukai and others were about to rush into the hospital and control all the sand village ninjas, they were greeted by several extremely high-temperature fireballs that distorted the nearby air. Scorch escape, oversteaming kill. The person who came was none other than the strongest man in the sand village today, a cage-level warrior who was severely injured on the front line by Minato Namikaze and had to return to the village to recuperate, Yakang, who could perform the scorch release. Although her injuries have not fully recovered, the strength she can mobilize while she is still in this injured state is still enough to stand above the cage level. After all, she has mastered the bloodline limit of scorch release, which has extremely terrifying attack power. Of course, Otsutsuki Mukai's strength is also not bad. Although he only gained the strength of a cage after joining the Hidden Mist village because CG released his bird in a cage curse and his Byakugan was purified, and he learned a lot of physical techniques belonging to the Otsutsuki clan brought back from the moon. Combined with his mastery of the Byakugan intimidation eye technique, he barely possessed the strength of a cage, and he is among the weakest cages. However, he still has no problem beating an injured Yagura. What's more, the senior ninjas brought by Otsutsuki Mukai are also full of talents. So, when the fireball was coming, one of the jonin who was wearing red glasses and had a blue mark on his face, who had been maintaining formation and following Otsutsuki Mukai into the Sand Village Hospital, quickly moved forward and appeared in front of Otsutsuki Mukai. He quickly formed the Zi Mao seals. He was a jonin named Nakayoshi from the Mist Village's Maitun Fujiwara clan. Lord Mukai. Leave it to me. Nakayoshi said calmly, while he stretched out his hands horizontally and aimed at the scorching fireball coming from the front. Underworld release, absorbing holes. I saw a blue chakra vortex appear out of thin air in the palms of Zhongji's hands, and then accompanied by a strong suction force, the several burning fireballs were quickly absorbed by it. And the blue chakra vortex was also dyed with a dazzling red color during this process. Back to you. Nether escape, evil self-destruction battle. Along with Zhongji's low shout, surging blue-red flames were instantly released from his palms, and then rushed towards Yekeng, who was originally rushing towards him following the scorch fireball. Otsutsuki Mukai, who was standing behind Nakayoshi, was suddenly enlightened when he saw this scene. He had heard of the rather mysterious bloodline limit of Mingtun that could absorb ninjutsu, but he had never seen it. After all, the Hidden Mist Village did not really participate in the last Ninja World War. Moreover, what he didn't expect was that the effect of the Nether Release Kekkei would be so good that it could even absorb the Scorch Release, which is also a Kekkei Genkai. Nakayoshi, a Jonin from the Hidden Mist Village, first appeared in the theatrical version of Inheritors of the Will of Fire and possessed the blood limit of darkness. However, when he appeared in the official plot later, his setting became a perception ninja with powerful perception abilities, and he could even easily sense the insects of the Aberme clan. Chapter 429. The blue-red flames reached Yekeng in just a moment, catching him off guard. As a high-ranking member of the Sand Village, although she knew about the bloodline limit of soul release, she had never encountered it in the ninja world. Therefore, Nakayoshi's sudden soul release became a surprise move, making all of Yekeng's plans fall into the air. She was forced to choose to resist the ninjutsu that was absorbed by Nakayoshi and then bounced back. Nakayoshi! Leave the Scorch Release Yagura to me. You are responsible for taking down the Sand Village Hospital. After Yagura's first wave of attack was resolved, Otsutsuki Mukai said to Nakayoshi in front of him and the other Kirigakure ninjas behind him. With Nakaji's strength, it is still too difficult for him to deal with Yekeng, who has mastered the Scorch Release. Even though the Yekeng in front of him is not at her peak at this time, only several senior ninjas can join forces to be on par with Yekeng in combat power. Therefore, the most efficient option is for him to be responsible for fighting Yekeng alone, while the other senior ninjas quickly take over the Sand Village Hospital. Yes. Lord Mukai. Nakayoshi and the other Kirigakure Jonin responded in unison, temporarily suppressing the fighting spirit that was brewing in their hearts. While Otsutsuki Mukai attacked Yekura, they bypassed them and rushed into the Sand Village Hospital. After all, Otsutsuki Mukai is not only superior to them in strength and status, but more importantly, the surname he is using now is the same as that of the fourth Mizukage, whom they respect the most. 8 trigrams breaking the mountain. Otsutsuki Mukai instantly came in front of Yekeng and launched a powerful bagua palm at his face. A thick beam of chakra light exploded directly near Yekeng and hit Yekeng's body in the blink of an eye. Near the Kazekage building, the Zigwashin Puffer Demon had already approached with the other 6 ninja swordsmen. According to Uzumaki Kana's perception and the Byakugan's confirmation, according to the information collected by White Zetsu, all the Sand Village's high-ranking officials who remained in the Sand Village were still in the Kazekage building at this time. Therefore, in order to take away the Sand Village in one wave, Kirigakure dispatched 7 cage-level figures to deal with these Sand Village high-level officials, giving them the respect they deserved. After all, although most of those who could serve as high-ranking officials in Tsunagakure have now been corrupted by power, are old and frail, and their strength has declined, they were at least elite Jonin once, and they must have 1 or 2 unique skills. No need for those fancy assassinations. Just a direct storm. After listening to Uzumaki Kana's report on the defense of the Kazekage building, as well as the approximate strength levels of the Sand Village Anbu and the Sand Village high-ranking officials guarding the Kazekage building, Zigwashin Puffer Ghost thought for a moment and spoke lightly. You have to know that they, the 7 ninja swordsmen, are not ordinary cage level. Even without using their ninja swords, they already have the combat power of a cage level. Then with the blessing of their ninja swords, they can be ranked in the upper middle level even among the cage level strong men. Not to mention, they also have the combined attack technique that they have honed together over the years. Let's start. Let Ying use his Thunder Blade to break the defensive barrier first, and then Kyunran will use his Flounder to directly destroy the Fengying building. After a brief pause of a few seconds, the Zigwashin Puffer Ghost continued to give orders. After hearing this, Sato Kage and Kizuna Chiba nodded, then stepped forward at the same time, holding their respective ninja swords, and their chakra burst out directly. Thunder Blade Ninja Technique Multiple Thunder Strikes. Sato Kage took the lead. He crossed the thunder blades in his hands and plunged them directly into the ground, then clasped his hands together. In an instant, the originally clear sky suddenly became gloomy and dark, as if covered by a huge black curtain. Then, several extremely thick dragon-like lightning bolts emerged from the void without warning, with the power to destroy the world, and struck the Fengying building below at an astonishing speed. Every bolt of lightning flashes with dazzling light and is accompanied by bursts of deafening thunder. This is the strongest lightning technique that Sato Kage can use at the moment, which does not require charging, and this attack is infused with nearly half of his chakra. After all, the purpose of this attack is to break the defensive barrier, and among the 7 ninja swordsmen, only he who has mastered lightning release and can rely on continuous high-intensity lightning bombardments can do it. Boom! Violent roars and explosions sounded centered on the Kirigakure building, and the Kirigakure building's defensive barrier appeared the moment the lightning struck, flashing a faint light as it struggled to resist Sato Kage's sudden lightning attack. When the first bolt of lightning struck the barrier fiercely, the Anbu members in charge of maintaining the barrier in the Fengying building vomited blood and their breath instantly weakened, but the barrier still stubbornly held its position. Soon after, the second and third lightning bolts followed one after another, each one was stronger than the previous one, and its power became more and more astonishing. At this time, the Anbu members responsible for maintaining the barrier could no longer hold on. Blood continued to gush out from their 7 orifices. They were directly killed by the aftermath of the attack that Sato Kage left through the barrier. And when the fourth lightning struck, there was only a crisp crack sound, and the defensive barrier of the Fengying building finally couldn't bear the burden and completely shattered. The chakra fragments of the broken barrier flew like raindrops, drawing irregular arcs in the air, and fell on the surrounding ground. Just at this time, Kizuna Chiba, who had already released his dual swords, Tail, and had accumulated chakra for some time, took action. Double sword ninjutsu, heaven-shattering slash. In an instant, an incomparably thick chakra ball shot out from the blades of the double swords, the flaming. Along with a loud explosion that echoed throughout the sand village, the iconic building that symbolized the Kirigakage's authority, the Kirigakure building, was shattered and collapsed. In fact, when the attack came, the Tsunagakure senior members in the Kirigakure building had already noticed it. After all, no matter what, they were once elite ninjas of the Tsunagakure village. It would be difficult for them not to sense such a blatant attack. However, the vision blinded by being in a high position for a long time, and the blind confidence that they were one of the 5 major ninja villages even though they were attacked, caused the Sand Village high-level officials to miss the best opportunity. Therefore, by the time the barrier was broken and they realized that things were out of their control, it was too late to organize a defense or evacuate. The remaining lightning attacks of Sato Kage, plus the heaven slash released in one go by Chiba, who had unleashed his dual swords to their maximum power, instantly destroyed the Kirigakure building, which had been reinforced by the third Kirigakure Tetsusa with his magnetic style, iron sand, and the fourth Kirigakure Raza with his magnetic style, gold sand. Many of the Sand Village Anbu members guarding the Kirigakure building were killed by the aftermath of the attack before they could even figure out what was happening. In the ruins of the collapsed Fengying building, broken bricks and rubble were scattered everywhere, piling up like a mountain, as if it was a huge wound left after the earth was torn apart. Dark red streams slowly meandered among the broken sand and gravel. Lifeless corpses lay in a pool of blood, some with twisted and deformed limbs, and some with hideous faces. The air was filled with a strong smell of blood mixed with the smell of dust, which was pungent and disgusting. Seeing the Kirigakure building collapse as expected, Zigwashin Pufferfish laughed grimly and issued an order: free movement. Quick battle and quick decision. All the Sand Village high-level officials. No one will be left alive. Then, Zigwashin Pufferfish picked up his big sword, Sameheta, and instantly rushed towards a Sand Village high-ranking official who was wearing a turban covering half of his face and jumped out of the ruins and was about to escape. After hearing the order from their captain, Zigwashin Pufferfish, the rest of the ninja swordsmen also showed bloodthirsty smiles, brandished their own ninja swords, and killed the Tsunagakure high-ranking members who had not suffered too many injuries because they were in the center of the Kirigakure building and were now in chaos and preparing for a strategic retreat. Chapter 430. Lord Yagura received the latest intelligence. It has been confirmed that Konoha has decided to temporarily cease fire with Tsunagakure. Uzumaki Kana informed Yagura of the latest intelligence from the Land of Fire, and Konoha will send its elite troops to help Tsunagakure repel our Kirigakure's attack. Yagura's expression suddenly became serious after hearing this. As expected, the troublemaker finally showed up, and Konoha village finally made this choice. Kyoji's judgment on the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen was relatively accurate. Without the hawkish Danzo Shimura, and the dispute of Sarutobi you regret, Danzo I am Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen made the decision to temporarily cease fire and send high-end combat forces to support the Sand Village without any surprise after an analysis by Konoha Crouching Dragon and Konoha Phoenix Hatchling. Although it is not known what kind of agreement will be reached between Sarutobi Hiruzen and Raza, or between Konoha and Tsunagakure, but once Konoha sends strong men to participate in the war, their plan of the Mist Village to destroy the Tsunagakure village will have significant changes. After all, a man's reputation is like a tree's shadow. Even though Konoha has begun to decline now and its overall strength has been surpassed by their hidden Mist Village, it was still the leader of the ninja world with a profound foundation in the past. At this point in time, it can still easily produce several cage-level fighters without much effort. Not to mention far away, just here in Konoha and Tsunagakure, there are 3 cage-level powerhouses, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Namikaze Minato, and these 3 are not weak among the cage level. In addition, Narashikaku, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Akimichi Choza, the 3 most famous Ino, Shika, and Jo combinations of the contemporary times, when added together, can also fight and compete with the cage-level powerhouses. In addition to the 3 cage-level ninjas, Raza, Cho, and Ebizo, from the Sand Village, as well as the large number of Sand Village ninja troops returning from the front lines, although the Mist Village can still crush them in terms of high-end combat power, it is unlikely to wipe out the remaining Sand Village ninjas in one fell swoop. Yagura quickly compared the overall strength of both sides in his mind, but no matter how he deduced, he could not find any way to capture all the Sand Village reinforcements. You know, according to the original battle plan, Konoha was not taken into consideration. After all, Kyoshi never thought that the spy from Konoha village lurking in the Sand Village would be so sharp and decisive. Therefore, Yagura originally planned to have Uzumaki Shinki and 3 of the 7 ninja swordsmen go outside the Sand Village after capturing the Sand Village. After the reinforcements from the Sand Village arrived, they would directly use the 4 Red Yang formation to defeat Raza and the others. But now, with Konoha's interference, it becomes inappropriate to let the 3 ninja swordsmen perform the 4 Red Yang formation. After all, this will reduce the high-end combat power of their Kirigakure on the battlefield. If there is no 4 Red Yang formation, then there will inevitably be a large number of Sand Village ninjas who will eventually escape. As for those Barrier Class and Seal Class ninjas who are currently maintaining the 4 Red Yang formation, they are not true cage-level powerhouses after all. They are only able to perform the current 4 Red Yang formation by taking advantage of the situation and working together. Furthermore, although the minimum combat strength of the Kirigakure village participating in the battle is also a special jonin, after all, in terms of numbers, it is at a great disadvantage compared to the ninja troops of the Sand Village. On the battlefield, even if it is a cage-level strongman, if he is besieged by the human wave tactics of ordinary ninjas, there is a high probability that problems will arise. So, Yagura thought hard but couldn't come up with an effective solution. So, he gave up. In the end, we still have to ask Kingxi for support, Konoha, this damn troublemaker. Kana. Yagura sighed and said, send a message to the Mizu cage. Request tactical guidance. Then, Yagura immediately turned his attention to Konan and Yahiko. Konan, after Chinano finishes the treatment, you and Yahiko will be responsible for sending your child and the wife of the 4th Kazekage to Angkor Fortress. Kirigakure village. Mizukage's office. Kingxi also received the information about Konoha's movements, so he handed the message to the 3rd cage Mizu Cage Bing who was sitting opposite him and chuckled, 3rd cage. It seems that the 3rd cage of Konoha is still as patient as ever. There was a slight hint of disdain in his tone. If it were him, considering the Sand Village's repeated sneak attacks on Konoha, it would be good enough for him not to add insult to injury. How could he turn around and help the Sand Village to repel the invading Mist Village at this time? Although, from Konoha's perspective, they believe that doing so can not only prevent the Sand Village from being completely destroyed, but also weaken the Sand Village to a great extent with the help of the Mist Village, and it is very likely that Sarutobi Hiruzen is really planning to take the Sand Village, which will be weakened and can only follow Konoha's butt and cheer for it, as an ally. After all, the first Hokage of Konoha, Hashirama Senju, who created the structure of the ninja village era, was so merciful back then. So, it is understandable that Sarutobi Hiruzen's final behavior was to inherit Hashirama Senju's peace-loving ideas. But in Kingji's opinion, only a destroyed sand village is a good sand village. Peace not based on strength, isn't that pure nonsense? You don't really think that there was peace back then with Hashirama Senju? That was clearly a nuclear strike. You know, in the ninja world, only power is unique and eternal. Without power, you are nothing. Chapter 431. Third Hiroshi. Sorry to bother you with this. Ching Si waited for the third Hiroshi Mizukage to finish reading, then spoke again. Although ice release will be subject to some restrictions in the Wind Country, its power on the battlefield is much better than other bloodline limits. Yes. Bing nodded after hearing this, a sharp look flashed across his eyes. Leave it to me. The fourth generation. Like other Kirigakure ninjas, Bing also has the warlike gene in his bones that has existed since the days of the first Mizukage Byakuren. He has not taken action for a while, but after seeing the information, he is itching to do something. That's it. After Yagura takes control of the Sand Village, I will open the space channel and teleport you over. King Si said with finality, and then he turned his head to look at the Anbu Chankin standing behind him. Send a telegram to Angkor Fortress. Tell them to speed up their progress. The third Hokage will go there for support later. At the same time, contact White Zetsu who is in charge of monitoring Konoha's frontline ninja troops, and ask him to pay close attention to Konoha's movements and report at any time. Yes. Jian responded respectfully, then left instantly to convey King Si's instructions. Afterwards, after arranging things, Kyoji left the Mizukage's office. There was nothing else he needed to do in the ninja world at the moment, so everything just had to proceed according to the plan. As the pupil power gently flowed through the reincarnation eye, the pupil technique Takamaji Ehara was instantly activated, and Seiji's figure disappeared in the hidden mist village. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at Myaboku Mountain, one of the 3 sacred places for summoning beasts that he had destroyed before. The 10 Tails, which was happily madly absorbing the rich natural energy that had accumulated for 1,000 years in Mount Myaboku, sensed Seiji's arrival and could not help but let out a roar of welcome. At this moment, a hint of gentleness that was completely inconsistent with its tyranny flashed across its single eye. For the 10 Tails, although its thinking pattern is relatively simple, it is not dull. It can clearly distinguish whether its 2 previous masters were good or bad. In its cognition, Kiyoshi, who often feeds it various foods and helps it to transform and grow, is simply an excellent good person compared to Otsutsuki Ishiki, who trapped it in one place and could not move and often came to extract its chakra from time to time. Therefore, the 10 Tails is extremely kind to its current owner, Kiyoshi. King Si seemed to have sensed the 10 Tails' thoughts. He instantly came to sit on top of the 10 Tails' head, and at the same time connected with the 10 Tails' chakra and began communicating. Although the 10 Tails has opened its belly to absorb without restraint in this space of Myaboku Mountain, but after so many days, there is still a lot of natural energy here. According to King Si's estimation, it would take about half a month to completely drain the water from Myaboku Mountain and turn it into a completely barren land. Therefore, it is necessary to keep the 10 Tails here. However, as the 10 Tails continues to absorb natural energy, its strength is also increasing. Therefore, the later it gets, the faster the 10 Tails absorbs natural energy. In this way, when the 10 Tails transforms into the form of a sacred tree, the effect of the chakra fruit it produces will be even more powerful, just like the chakra fruit that Kagaya swallowed that year. You know, the 10 Tails 1,000 years ago was transformed into a sacred tree and planted in the ninja world after it reached its peak state. Although the effect of the chakra fruit that was finally produced was so good, it was mostly due to the fact that the nursery of the ninja world had abundant energy that was rare in the universe, but the state and strength of the 10 Tails itself also played a lot of role. Soon, 20 minutes passed, and the war in which the Hidden Mist Village raided the Hidden Sand Village had come to an end. At the entrance of Sunagakure Hospital, a corpse with only the lower half of its body remaining was lying crookedly in a pool of blood on the ground. From his clothes, one could vaguely recognize that this extremely dilapidated corpse was none other than the cage-level warrior from the Sand Village, Scorch Release Yekang. Yekura's information about Otsutsuki Mukai is still at the Hyuga Mukai stage, so she still fights with Otsutsuki Mukai as she did in the past against the Hyuga clan ninjas. The lack and errors in information gave Otsutsuki Mukai the opportunity to kill. After using 8 trigrams, Kaden to block Yekura's Scorch Release attack, Otsutsuki Mukai took advantage of the gap when Yekura was about to perform the next Scorch Release and directly attacked him with Bun, pressure infused with most of his pupil power. Yekang was charged on the spot without any surprise. Then, things developed naturally. After instantly closing the distance between him and Yekang, Otsutsuki Mukai's chakra, which had been secretly gathered long ago, instantly erupted from his palm, and the strongest physical technique he mastered, God's Sky Strike, was directly delivered to Yekang. So, Yekang, the cage-level strongman of the Sand Village, was killed so suddenly, and he didn't even leave a complete body. This side of Fengying building. Faced with those Sunagakure high-ranking officials who had been corrupted by power and whose strength was only 1/10 of what it was, the 7 ninja swordsmen still went all out. After all, they remembered what Kyoji had taught them, even if a lion fights a rabbit, it will use all its strength. Although the killing process was quite difficult due to the scattered escape of the Sand Village high-level leaders and the desperate guards of the Sand Village Anbu who had managed to survive, the final result was a good one after all. According to the order issued by Cg, none of the Sand Village high-ranking officials who would hinder Kirigakure's rule over Sand Village escaped, and were sent to the Pure Land one after another by the 7 ninja swordsmen. At this point, the resistance of the Sand Village was basically wiped out, with only a few sporadic flames of resistance remaining, which were gradually extinguished one by the mist ninjas under the guidance of Uzumaki Kana's powerful perception. The Sand Village was officially conquered by the Kirigakure. Chapter 432. Not long after returning from the alien space, Kingxi received a battle report from Yagura, saying that the Sand Village had been completely cleared out and was completely under the control of their mist village. Under the control of Qingxi's living puppet Cheneng, the Angkor fortress had already fallen from the sky and was stationed at the location of the original Fengying building. Among them, the civilian staff that Kingxi had specifically asked to be brought along before the war also walked out of the Angkor fortress and moved into the Sand Village. They quickly set up a preliminary administrative team, allowing the Sand Village to resume initial operations as quickly as possible. As for the Sand Ninjas, except for those who were killed on the spot in the battle and those who surrendered in time when they saw that the situation was hopeless, the rest of the injured Sand Ninjas, no matter how serious their injuries were basically rescued in time. Then, after receiving initial treatment from the medical team of the Hidden Mist Village, they were also imprisoned in the prison of Angkor Fortress along with the rest of the Sand Ninjas. Their current role is to work together with the air ninjas trapped in Angkor Fortress by Kyoji to provide power for the Angkor Fortress. Of course, this is only temporary. After Bing, Yagura and others have defeated and captured all the Sand Village troops led by Raza, and completely eliminated the Sand Village from the ninja world, CG will consider giving the Sand Village ninjas limited freedom and placing them completely under the rule of his Mist Village. After all, these ninjas will be the best tools to continuously provide chakra for his sacred tree in the future. After returning to the Mizuki's office, Kyoji learned about the latest developments in the Sand Village and nodded with satisfaction. Afterwards, he used the eye technique Takamaji Ehara to teleport the third Mizukage Bing, who had been eager to try, directly to the Angkor fortress which had already landed in the Sand Village. Everything is ready, just waiting for Luo Xia and the others to arrive. After sending the third Mizukage Bing to the Sand Village, CG once again used the eye technique Takamaji Ehara to go to his own different dimension. This time, he finally had some free time to study the treasure plough that had been repaired not long ago. To be honest, he kind of missed Kagaya. However, his plan had just begun, and he did not yet have enough confidence to teach that rebellious son a lesson. After all, the famous saying of not fighting in unprepared battle has always been his code of conduct. Therefore, now is not the best time to rescue Kagaya from the Six Paths Chibaku Tensei. Therefore, if he wants to see his Kagaya now, he can only use the Otsutsuki treasure plough which has been repaired not long ago and has the ability to travel through time and space to see if it can allow him to return to the era when he left Kagaya 1,000 years ago. Although Kyoji knew that the bloodline net level eye technique that Otsutsuki Urashiki triggered before his death, which was infused with all his power of time and space, had engraved coordinates on his body that anchored the past time and space they had all been to, and this would obviously make him repelled by the past, Kyoji was unwilling to give it a try. After all, his strength has improved since then. Although he has not yet achieved the bloodline network, the difference in strength level is not that big. Maybe, he can ignore the effect of Otsutsuki Urashiki's eye technique to a certain extent and force himself to stay in that past time and space for a short period of time to relieve his lovesickness. Kingxi stretched out his hand and grasped the treasure plough, slowly inputting chakra into it. Certified start. A familiar, emotionless mechanical voice came from the noble phantasm plough, and a soft green light lit up at the same time. I am the noble phantasm, the plough. Please allow me to introduce the precautions when using it. Now confirm the operation process. If the order is wrong, it will affect the use. Otsutsuki. Otsutsuki. The repaired noble phantasm plough, after being reactivated by the chakra input by Kingxi, once again fell into the same stuck state as last time. Although it had identified Otsutsuki Urashiki's identity and completed the startup procedure before it was damaged, and could now be used directly by Kiyoshi, it still could not recognize Kiyoshi's identity as he had not been registered in the Otsutsuki clan. Looking at the performance of the noble phantasm plow, Kingsley couldn't help but roll his eyes. It must be said that the artificial mental retardation program designed by the Otsutsuki clan was too dogmatic. My name is Otsutsuki CG. After a barely perceptible sigh, CG said to the treasure plow. Okay. Recorded. Lord Otsutsuki CG. After the soft green light on the treasure plow flashed a few times, it accepted Seiji's order. Fortunately, the noble phantasm plow had been activated by Otsutsuki Urashiki before. Even if there was a small problem and it could not be used for a while, it was still in an activated state. Otherwise, Kiyoshi, whose identity had not been recorded by him, would not be able to use it even if he was a genuine Otsutsuki and knew how to use it. Please proceed with the mobile settings. Chapter 433. Kingsley quickly calculated the time in his mind, then input his chakra again and entered the coordinates of the space-time movement. As the coordinates were confirmed, the treasure plow lit up with a layer of pale yellow halo, and a space-time fluctuation that was clearly visible in Kingsley's unconsciously opened pure eyes continued to radiate around with the treasure plow as the center. The faintly flickering yellowish light became brighter and brighter, and its range began to expand. Soon, a dazzling yellow halo with a diameter of about 1 meter appeared in front of Kingsley. It was the space-time movement channel formed by the treasure plow. Kingsley showed an expectant smile on his face, then holding the treasure plow in his hand, he slowly walked into the light circle. At the same time, Orochimaru, who received an urgent message from the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, had already negotiated terms with the fourth Kazekage Raza on behalf of Konoha village. At this time, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Minato Namikaze, together with the three strongest Inoshikacho, Narashikaku, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Akimichi Choza, were hanging far behind the Sand Village troops, ready to provide support at any time after the war between Sand Village and Kirigakure broke out. Orochimaru. Jiraiya, who was running fast in a ninja posture, suddenly asked his friend, "What do you think of the surprise attack of the Hidden Mist Village on the Hidden Sand Village?" After losing the Toad summoning beast, he and Namikaze Minato were unable to contact the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen directly and quickly. Therefore, on the Konoha side, only Orochimaru could communicate directly with Sarutobi Hiruzen with the help of the snake summoning beast in the Ryokai cave. After receiving the message from Sarutobi Hiruzen, Orochimaru immediately stopped Namikaze Minato's harassment of the Sand Village forces, and then went directly to negotiate with Raza. Therefore, Jiraiya did not see the information passed on by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Hearing Jiraiya's question, Orochimaru recalled the information passed on by his teacher Sarutobi Hiruzen in his mind, and couldn't help but reveal a complicated look on his face. It has not been confirmed yet how the Hidden Mist Village bypassed the border defense line of the Wind Country and directly attacked the Hidden Sand Village, but what can be confirmed is that the strength of the Hidden Mist Village is far beyond our expectations, and it is even possible that it has surpassed our Konoha. After hearing this, Jiraiya's expression became serious. He never expected Orochimaru to give such an answer. Minato Namikaze, Shikaku Nara, and others who were following closely behind Jiraiya, all showed stern expressions at the same time when they heard Orochimaru's answer. It can be said that Orochimaru's estimation of the strength of the Hidden Mist Village really shocked them and caused them to feel a little panic. After all, as the most promising disciple of the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, and one of the three ninjas of Konoha, Orochimaru has a very high status in Konoha. The fact that he could say this means that the strength of their Konoha village has most likely been surpassed by the Hidden Mist Village. And this was a little unacceptable to them. You know, in the past 40 years, Konoha village has always been firmly sitting on the top spot in the ninja world, and it has never been shaken. Even if the other four major ninja villages attacked Konoha together, Konoha could easily defeat four with its strength. But now, Orochimaru said that Konoha is no longer the leader of the ninja world. The impact of this on them can be imagined. Orochimaru. Is the information accurate? Jiraiya quickly came to his senses and grasped the key point. Accurate. The intelligence sent by Lord Hokage shows that the Hidden Mist Village has dispatched hundreds of Jonin-level ninjas this time, and obviously, this cannot be the entire strength of the Hidden Mist Village. I think, at most, this is only half of the strength of the Hidden Mist Village. Orochimaru affirmed, and then stated his judgment. This is a bit bad. No wonder such a decision had to be made. Jiraiya murmured with a grim expression, feeling indescribably heavy in his heart. After the destruction of Mount Myaboku, Jiraiya's entire mind was focused on Konoha village, and without the Myaboku toad's temptations about fate and peace, Jiraiya's thoughts were gradually changing. Therefore, at first he did not quite understand the decision of his teacher Sarutobi Hiruzen, thinking that this would cause damage to Konoha's interests. However, after learning the information from Orochimaru, he knew that helping the Sand Village from destruction was the right decision for them, Konoha. However, he still felt that the decision made by his teacher Sarutobi Hiruzen was a bit too petty. Even at this critical juncture, he was still considering the reputation of Konoha and only sent out these few drop-in-the-bucket high-end combat forces instead of directly declaring war on the Hidden Mist Village. According to his idea, since the threat of the Hidden Mist Village has been confirmed, they should go all out in the war right from the start. All the Konoha ninjas who originally followed them to fight against the Hidden Sand Village should rush forward, combine the strength of Konoha and Hidden Sand Village, win by quantity, crush them, and defeat the Hidden Mist Village. As for the saying that hatred will affect the coordinated operations between the two villages, that is even more ridiculous. Wouldn't it be better for each of them to fight on their own? Anyway, the ultimate goal is just to prevent the Sand Village from being completely destroyed by the Mist Village, and to weaken both the Sand Village and the Mist Village at the same time. Of course, don't worry about peace. The ninja war is in full swing, so how can there be any peace? After all, peace is achieved through fighting, not words. If Konoha doesn't take this opportunity to declare war on the Hidden Mist Village and destroy as many of the Hidden Mist Village's manpower as possible, then when the Hidden Mist Village has time, it will declare war on Konoha. Various thoughts kept flashing through Jiraiya's mind. He vaguely felt that his teacher Sarutobi Hiruzen's unclear decisions might bring him disaster. However, he also knew that although he was one of Konoha's 3 ninjas and could be considered a quasi-high-level official in Konoha, he did not have Tsunade's political resources and Orochimaru's influential position in the village. It was impossible for him to change the decision made after discussion between his teacher, the 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, and the 2 advisory elders Mito Kado and Enyutain Koharu. Therefore, he could only try his best and act according to the orders passed down from the village. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone! Chapter 434. In the colorful and dreamlike space-time channel, the treasure plow floats in the air under the effect of chakra, emitting a faint but regular light yellow light. Ching Si, on the other hand, stood aside, quietly sensing and observing the irregular space-time fluctuations around him, which were rendered colorful by the power of the treasure plow. You know, the last time he came in, he was busy fighting with Otsutsuki Urashiki, and in the end, Otsutsuki Urashiki disrupted the space and time, shattered the space and time channel, causing him to fall into the turbulence of space and time. Therefore, he did not have any extra energy to carefully observe the space-time channel constructed by the Otsutsuki clan's treasure plow. After all, as far as the ability to travel through time and space is concerned, even the ordinary power of the bloodline network cannot do it. At least, in Otsutsuki Ishiki's memory, except for the legendary Otsutsuki Shibat, whose ability is unknown but who may have become the god of Otsutsuki, all other Otsutsuki clan members, no matter how strong they are, cannot do it. Therefore, with the help of the space-time channel constructed by the treasure plow, King Si can get a glimpse of the mystery of the time side in the space-time ability. Moreover, if King Si can figure out some of the mysteries of time from it, maybe after he eats the chakra fruit later, he can also obtain the bloodline network ability about time similar to or even better than Otsutsuki Urashiki. With the help of Pure Eye's powerful insight into time and space, Ching Si concentrated on capturing and sensing the fluctuations of time and space, which were sometimes violently distorted, sometimes gently rippling, like wildly dancing ribbons, whose trajectory and changing patterns were difficult to predict. At this time, the treasure plow made a prompting sound. Lord Otsutsuki CG. We are about to arrive at the space-time transfer coordinates. Please be prepared. Hearing the reminder of the noble phantasm plow, King Si pulled his attention back from his focused perception and looked forward. A dazzling white light suddenly lit up, instantly illuminating the entire space-time movement channel. Immediately, the originally chaotic space-time fluctuations in the space-time movement channel became orderly and regular, as if they were combed by an invisible big hand. In the vision of the pure eye, the fluctuations of space and time began to rotate slowly and rhythmically, centered on the treasure plow, following some mysterious rhythm. King Si's eyes couldn't help but reveal anticipation and excitement, he would be able to see his Kaguya soon. However, we know that under normal circumstances, if nothing unexpected happens, then it is likely that something will happen. Suddenly, the dazzling white light seemed to be blocked by something, and the brightness began to dim gradually. The regular fluctuations of time and space also stopped at this moment and became chaotic again. At the same time, the mechanical sound of the treasure plow that should have been calm also took on a hint of urgency and was transmitted to King C's ears at the same time. Warning! Space-time disturbance detected. Coordinate deviation. Warning! Space-time disturbance detected. Coordinate deviation. Warning! Space-time disturbance detected. Coordinate deviation. Hearing the error warning from the treasure plow and the fluctuations of space and time that became disordered again under the observation of the pure eye, the expectant look in King C's eyes suddenly turned gloomy, and his face became extremely ugly. Time and space interference, it has been explained so clearly, how could he not understand what is going on? Otsutsuki Urashiki. Kiyoshi gritted his teeth and said every word, his tone full of resentment, gloom, and boundless anger. At this moment, he simply wanted to resurrect Urashiki and kill him again. This damn guy can't even rest in peace after death. This was just approaching the past time and space in the time and space movement channel. Before he officially entered, he was rejected. Originally, King C had envisioned that even though he would be rejected after returning to the time and space 1,000 years ago, he could try to use the power of the pure eye in time and space to see if he could stay there for a while. But now, this premature rejection left his thoughts empty, leaving him with no room to maneuver at all. The fluctuations in time and space became increasingly chaotic, and the treasure plow seemed to have crashed, constantly repeating the error warning. King C grabbed the noble phantasm plow floating in the air in his hand, and then input chakra into it, trying to control the noble phantasm plow to take him directly back the same way. However, to his disappointment, the noble phantasm plow did not respond at all, and continued to repeat the error warning. Tisk! King C curled his lips in annoyance. You know, this situation was not within his expectations. Although he had the strength of the 6 paths level, traveling through time and space was not something that could be accomplished with just strength. Moreover, he did not know much about the information about the Otsutsuki clan's treasure, the plow. Therefore, facing the current situation, King C couldn't help but feel a little at a loss. However, King C was not panicked. After all, his strength was there. The worst that could happen was that he would enter the space-time turbulence again like last time, find a space-time he could enter, and then return. However, just as King C was about to actively leave the space-time movement channel and enter the space-time turbulence, the treasure plow, which had absorbed a large amount of King C's chakra in a short period of time, changed. An extremely dazzling yellow-green mixed light suddenly emanated from the turtle-shaped treasure plow. Just like the light of the rising sun, it is neither pure yellow nor pure green, but a wonderful and unique mixture of yellow and green. New space-time coordinates have been generated. Now let's start the space-time movement. A programmed mechanical voice suddenly came out from the treasure plow. Then, before Ching Si could respond, the treasure plow took Ching Si and disappeared into the dazzling halo. Chapter 435. Boom! Accompanied by a loud crash, a white figure fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground, creating a huge deep pit. At the same time, the powerful impact force also stirred up a large amount of loose soil and thick smoke. Where is this? It doesn't look like the ninja world. A slightly puzzled whisper came from the center of the deep pit. It was King C who was teleported by the treasure plow that changed the time and space coordinates by itself. Of course, it may not be accurate to say that it was changed by itself. The correct statement should be that King C, who did not know the other operating methods of the noble phantasm plow, wanted to control the noble phantasm plow to take him directly back the same way when time and space interference occurred, and input a large amount of chakra that exceeded its upper limit into the noble phantasm plow, causing the noble phantasm plow to trigger an automatic cruise mode in an overloaded state that was set when it was manufactured by the Otsutsuki clan. In this mode, the treasure plow captured a set of space-time coordinates near the space-time movement channel where it was located according to the fluctuations of space-time. Then, it automatically changed the coordinates according to the established procedure, and took King C directly to the new destination. As his pupil power flowed, King C had already switched his pure eye to his Rinnegan, and his perception spread out to the surroundings like a tide. The first thing he had to do was to confirm where exactly he had been taken by the noble phantasm plow. I don't sense any familiar aura. A big question mark slowly rose above Kingxie's head. What is this for me? At this moment, the treasure plough in Kingxie's hand once again issued an error warning. Warning! Warning! The space-time movement has greatly deviated from the target coordinates. Warning! Warning! The space-time movement has greatly deviated from the target coordinates. Warning! Warning! The space-time movement has greatly deviated from the target coordinates. Hearing the error warning from the noble phantasm plough again, Kiyoshi, who was already mentally prepared, curled the corners of his mouth helplessly. This bastard Otsutsuki Urashiki really did a lot of harm to people. So, where is this place? Ching Si asked the noble phantasm plough. Since it was the noble phantasm plough that generated the new coordinates and brought him here, even though there was a deviation, he should know where this place is. This is the moon. Lord Otsutsuki CG. But because the coordinates were subject to unknown interference during the movement of time and space, we are no longer in the original time and space. The treasure plough was silent for a moment, as if calculating something, and then gave a response, but its response made Seiji's head buzz. This treasure plough is too unreliable. It directly sent him to another world. Yes, that's right. Kingxie understood the meaning of the noble phantasm plough. Although he is now on the moon, it is no longer the past or future of the time and space where he is. In other words, Kingxie has now come to a completely new and unknown world. Shaking his head slightly, Kingxie put the treasure plough in his hand into the Takamagahara space. Since he had come to this unknown world where he didn't know what was going on, he didn't rush back. Anyway, the treasure plough records the exact coordinates of his original time and space. As long as he has enough chakra, he can go back anytime he wants. Let's explore first. If this place is suitable, he can use it as a nursery for planting the sacred tree. After all, he and Kaguya together have 2 10-tails. As the blue-green chakra flames rose, Kingxie activated the Samsara Eye chakra mode and flew directly into the universe. As an Otsutsuki, CG can certainly survive in outer space. So, knowing that this is the moon, CG wants to confirm the situation on Earth so as to find out what kind of world he has come to. Suddenly, Kingxie, who was flying at high speed, frowned slightly. In his perception, which had just been fully spread out and covered the entire moon, there appeared a very obscure but extremely familiar chakra breath that resonated with his Rin-Egan. This feeling seems to be the giant reincarnation eye that I absorbed. Kingxie was a little confused. Could it be that there is also a giant reincarnation eye on the moon here? Does that mean this is a parallel ninja world? Thinking of this, Kingxie suddenly became alert. He stopped suddenly in the sky, and then carefully looked down at the bumpy moon surface hit by meteorites. At first, Kingxie just thought that he had come to a strange world, so he did not carefully perceive the interior of the moon. And now, when he carefully used the Rin-Egan to penetrate the moon's surface and see into the moon's interior, he easily discovered the underground space opened up by the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, which was the same as the interior of the moon in his time and space. Then he quickly discovered the giant Rin-Egan inside the temple. I have to say, Kingxie is very lucky. If he was just a 6 paths level Otsutsuki, then it would be impossible for him to sense the extremely weak chakra aura of the giant Samsara Eye that was hidden under the barrier and only leaked out occasionally. But unfortunately, Kingxie also has the same Rin-Egan that evolved from the pure eye after absorbing the giant Rin-Egan. Chapter 436. After locking the position of the giant Samsara Eye, the eye technique Takamagahara was activated, and the next second, Seiji's figure slowly appeared in the temple. Looking at the temple that houses the giant Samsara Eye, Kingxie couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It's exactly the same. Is this really a parallel world? It can be said that the layout inside the temple is not only very similar to the temple where he absorbed the giant Samsara Eye, but it is exactly the same. In other words, this is the Hamura shrine inside the artificial sun built by the Otsutsuki clan on the early moon that CG had visited, which was used to store the giant Samsara Eye. Until this time, Kingxie finally confirmed that the time and space he was inadvertently brought to by the treasure plough due to unknown interference was also the ninja world, but it was a parallel ninja world of an unknown year. Converging the chakra energy around his body, Kingxie slowly floated towards the giant Rin-Egan that was emitting a golden halo, with a hint of heat unconsciously revealed in his eyes. This luck has come, and it is really unstoppable. If all the power contained in this giant reincarnation eye is absorbed, Kingxie will have enough confidence to go back and fight with his rebellious son Otsutsuki Hago Romo, and rescue his Kaguya from the Seal of 6 Paths, Chibaku Tensei. This giant Rinnegan is more than enough to push Kingsee's Rinnegan to a higher level. Whether it can be comparable to the Rinnegan on Kagaya's forehead is hard to say before trying it, but there is no doubt that it surpasses Otsutsuki Urashiki's 6 Megatama Rinnegan. Therefore, even though Kyoji has not yet achieved the bloodline network, he is still confident that he can fight Otsutsuki Hago Romo on equal terms with his pair of extremely high-level samsara eyes. Of course, Kyoji also knew that there might still be members of the Otsutsuki clan on the moon in this unknown era, but when he used the Rinnegan to observe just now, his attention was focused on finding the giant Rinnegan, and he only took a rough glance at other places inside the artificial sun. Therefore, Kingji did not take the possible existence of the moon Otsutsuki clan too seriously. After all, after confirming that this was a parallel ninja world, Kingsea knew that, except for his rebellious son who was hiding in the Pure Land, his 6 paths level strength could be said to be the ceiling of combat power. Moreover, with the strength as a backing, he must first obtain the giant samsara eye that can increase his strength again, and then consider dealing with those possible Otsutsuki clan on the moon. However, just as Kingseea stretched out his right hand to touch the giant Rinnegan for absorption, a slightly stiff voice came from behind him, accompanied by several beams of chakra light shooting out. Those who invaded the temple. Die. Sensing the movement behind him, Kingseea raised his eyebrows slightly, with a half-smile on his face. As expected, there are still surviving Otsutsuki clan on the moon in this era. You know, these puppets of the lunar Otsutsuki clan need to be controlled remotely by someone in order to launch an attack. Therefore, the moment Kingseea sensed the attack, he knew that in this parallel ninja world of an unknown year that he came to, there were still members of the lunar Otsutsuki clan alive in the world. However, since they dared to attack him, the real Otsutsuki, then there is no need to wait any longer and just deal with them first. A deep light flashed in the reincarnation eye. Kingseea ignored the movement behind him, but continued to put his right hand into the giant reincarnation eye and began to absorb directly. A large amount of pure reincarnation pupil power was quickly absorbed by Kingseea, and then moistened his eyes. Suddenly, Kingseea unconsciously exhaled a long breath of comfort. At this moment, every cell in his body seemed to be cheering and rejoicing. At the same time, a dark jade appeared behind him, blocking the attack from behind without any ripples. Then, the jade flew out rapidly, and with lightning speed, it smashed several puppets that were attacking from the entrance of the temple into pieces, turning them into powder. Then, a wood-release clone slowly emerged from behind Kingseea, then broke away and followed the chakra aura exposed by the remote control of the puppet to launch an attack. The bright yellow light of the giant Rinnegan dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye, while the sky blue light emitted by Kingsea's Rinnegan became more and more dazzling at the same time. You know, Kingsea's strength at this moment is no longer comparable to the last time he absorbed the giant samsara eye. Therefore, it only takes about 10 minutes for Kingseea to absorb all the power contained in the giant samsara eye. On the moon, inside the artificial sun, in the main hall of the Otsutsuki castle. The Otsutsuki tonari of this world is venting and covering up his fear with impotent rage. Although there were 2 empty holes in his eye sockets, Otsutsuki tonari, who mastered the secret techniques passed down by the Otsutsuki clan, was still able to see Seiji's appearance when he used a puppet to attack Seiji, who broke into the Hamura temple with the intention of committing evil deeds to the giant samsara eye. The attire, the nobility and elegance that he inadvertently exuded, and the terrifying aura that he occasionally revealed, made him absolutely certain that Ching Si was the so-called man from heaven that had been passed down in the clan. Therefore, even though he possesses the Otsutsuki bloodline that can rival that of his ancestor Otsutsuki Hamura, and is considered by the elders of their branch family to be someone who can awaken the samsara eye, and he himself is even confident that in the future, after obtaining a pair of Byakugan of sufficient purity from the Hyuga clan of the ninja world, he will have the power to destroy the ninja world, but after all, not now. You know, due to a congenital defect, he was born without the most important Byakugan of the Otsutsuki clan. In other words, his current strength is still very weak compared to Seiji, and may be at best the level of an elite jonin in the ninja world. This is exactly why he used puppets to attack. Chapter 437. Kyoji's wood-release clone silently broke through the barrier of the Otsutsuki castle and entered it, and then quickly found Otsutsuki tonari, who was in a state of powerless rage. Looking at the vaguely recognizable face that was slightly similar to Otsutsuki Tenshin and Otsutsuki Gara, Kingseea couldn't help but be stunned. Is this the grown-up Sharon? However, Kyoji had no intention of holding back. He instantly appeared in front of Otsutsuki tonari, and the moment Otsutsuki Tonari became aware of the situation and prepared to resist, he knocked him out with a light hand knife, as if he had lifted a feather. All I can say is that the gap in strength between the two was so huge that Otsutsuki Tonari had no power to resist at all and was knocked down by Seiji's would-release clone. After knocking out Otsutsuki Tonari, Seiji's would-release clone used all his strength to sense every part of the artificial sun carefully. After a moment, he was sure that the only Otsutsuki clan on the moon now had Otsutsuki Tonari as the only one left. Then, the samsara eye lit up slightly, and a green ball of light appeared in the hand of Seiji's would-release clone, and then it was shot into Otsutsuki Tonari's body. It is the eye technique of the samsara eye, which has the spirit ball that can control the opponent's will and actions, and obtain the thoughts of others in the process of control. Soon, Kyoji obtained all the information that Otsutsuki Tonari knew, and also knew what era he was living in. Is it really the little Tonari? Kingxi murmured. The Otsutsuki clan member in front of him, whose eyes were empty and who was controlled by him, was indeed the child of Otsutsuki Tenshin and Otsutsuki Gara, Otsutsuki Tonari. However, Kingxi did not have any other special feelings towards him. He was probably just a familiar stranger. After all, the Otsutsuki Tonari in his world was just a cub, while the one in front of him was already a young man of about 20 years old. Even though the Otsutsuki Tonari in this world can be said to be an Otsutsuki in terms of bloodline, the difference between the Tonari in the two worlds is so great that Seiji cannot find the slightest sense of closeness he feels towards his own cub. Of course, Kyoji will not ignore him. After all, he has some connection with him. Kyoji will naturally give some help to Otsutsuki Tonari in the future. However, there is one thing that Kingji is more concerned about, that is, the Otsutsuki Tonari in this world inherited the destiny of Hamura as understood by the so-called Moon Otsutsuki clan branch that also exists in Kingji's ninja world. He has been planning to obtain a pair of pure Byakugan, so as to achieve the goal of destroying the ninja world after awakening the Rinnegan. So of course this is not possible for Ching Si. The ninja world is considered the best nursery in the universe, how can it be destroyed? Although after knowing that this is a parallel ninja world, Kingxi has already given up the idea of using this place as his nursery to plant the sacred tree. You know, there is also a Kagaya Otsutsuki in this world. Even though that was not his Kagaya and he had never had any emotional experience with her, she was still Kagaya. Compared with other people in the ninja world, especially the rebellious son and the chakra reincarnations of his two children, Seiji naturally had a certain stance towards Kagaya. Moreover, Kingxi did not want to see Kagaya breaking the seal and then being sealed again, even if this was not actually his Kagaya. Moreover, if the final winner is the rebellious son of Otsutsuki Hago Romo, even if Seiji does not belong to this ninja world, he will not be able to accept it. That's right. After obtaining Otsutsuki Tonari's memories, Kyoji already knew that the era he came to was the time when the Fourth Ninja World War had just begun. Moreover, the development process of this parallel ninja world is exactly the same as the Naruto world without him that he had a simple and superficial understanding of in his previous life. Although Kingxi did not know the specific development of the Fourth Ninja World War, which was different from the previous ones, he knew clearly the deeper secrets hidden beneath the surface of the war. After the Lunar Otsutsuki clan's branch won the war against the main family, in addition to frequently using the secret techniques passed down by their clan to watch the ninja world, they would also send people to the ninja world from time to time to collect intelligence. Therefore, Otsutsuki Tonari, who inherited everything from the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, has a relatively good understanding of the general situation in the ninja world. Of course, all of this was of great benefit to the newly arrived Kingxi, allowing him to have sufficient understanding of the ninja world in this parallel universe. As Seiji sorted out the information he had obtained from Otsutsuki Tonari, his expression kept changing. Sure enough, the development process of the ninja world in the parallel time and space is completely different from the ninja world in his time and space. His younger brother Yagura was the fourth Mizukage of the ninja world in this parallel universe, but he was eventually controlled by the Sharingan's illusion. Not only did he upgrade the blood mist policy left by the third Mizukage Bing, he also massacred the bloodline families in the village. If it weren't for his old subordinate Ching, who earned the Hyuga clan's contempt on the battlefield, and if the elders Yuanshi and Terumi Mei also had enough courage, who knows what would have happened to the hidden mist village at the hands of his little brother. It can be said that here, his mist village, because of the manipulation of Uchiha Madara, has fallen to the point of competing with the weak sand village for the first place. Speechless, extremely speechless, Kingxi sighed helplessly, this batch of Kirigakure ninjas are really not that good, they still need some practice. At this moment, King C's wood-release clone raised his head as if he sensed something and looked in the direction of Hamura Temple. The absorption of the giant reincarnation eye is completed. Inside the Hamura shrine, King C withdrew his hand from the giant reincarnation eye with a smile on his face. The feeling of fullness from the overflowing pupil power made him feel extremely happy, and his condition couldn't be better. At this moment, the giant reincarnation eye that was originally shining with golden luster has turned into a grayish-white color, and reveals a feeling of decay and dilapidation. It can be said that King Ji never expected that the time and space interference power left on him by Otsutsuki Urashiki would unexpectedly make him come to the ninja world of parallel time and space, and also get such an opportunity. If Otsutsuki Urashiki knew about this, he would definitely feel very pleased. Chapter 438. Kiyoshi, who completely absorbed this giant Rinnegan, gained another huge improvement on the basis of his original strength. The level of his Rinnegan is now not inferior to Otsutsuki Urashiki's blue and red Rinnegan with 6 megatama. According to Kiyoshi's rough estimate, it should even be much higher. Therefore, now CG has enough confidence to compete with his rebellious son Otsutsuki Hago Romo, who has mastered the bloodline network, just by relying on his pair of extremely high-level reincarnation eyes. After taking one last look at the giant Rinnegan that had been drained dry by him, CG activated the eye technique Takamaji Ahara and teleported directly to the side of his wood-release clone. When Kiyoshi's wood-release clone saw Kiyoshi's real body coming and sensed the surging pupil power that unconsciously overflowed from Kiyoshi's real body's eyes, it knew that the giant samsara eye had been completely absorbed. Therefore, the wood-release clone did not say much, but took a step forward and crashed into Kiyoshi's real body. Therefore, after taking back the wood-release clone, all the information was already in the hands of Kingxi. Afterwards, Kiyoshi temporarily ignored Otsutsuki Tonari, who was standing beside him, and instead fully activated his Rinnegan, which had just been greatly enhanced, and began to search for Otsutsuki Hamura, who was sleeping on the moon. In fact, after CG learned that this was a parallel ninja world, he had already secretly tried to find Otsutsuki Hamura. But after all, Otsutsuki Hamura is also a 6 paths level who also has the samsara eye. Therefore, when only his soul was left and he fell into a sleeping state, CG was unable to discover anything. Of course, Hamura, who was in a deep sleep, also failed to notice Kingxi's arrival. Because, CG grew up in the ninja world, and he is a 6 paths level Otsutsuki born in the ninja world. Therefore, CG does not have the special aura of the Otsutsuki from the universe and the starry sky that is very different from the people in the ninja world. When Kiyoshi did not release the 6 paths level chakra, neither Otsutsuki Hago Romo nor Otsutsuki Hamura could detect it. As for the 2 times Hamura woke up in Kingxi's world, they were completely accidental and extremely rare cases. The first time was because he sensed the unique aura of Seiji's awakening pure eye, and the second time was because the battle place between Seiji and his 2 companions and Otsutsuki Haishi's puppet ninja troops was near where he was sleeping. Without much effort, Kingxi used his Rinnegan, which had reached a higher level, to detect Otsutsuki Hamura, who was in a sleeping soul state in a certain space. As mentioned before, CG didn't have many resentments towards Otsutsuki Hamura in his world. Although he was also angry that the indecisive Hamura followed the rebellious son Hamura without knowing right from wrong, and together they sealed Kagaya for 1,000 years, CG could feel from his previous conversation with Hamura that he actually regretted it. Moreover, Hamura subjectively did not have the kind of rebellious son who was bewitched and had completely out-of-line ideas. What's more, CG also owed Hamura a favor during the process of awakening his samsara eye. Therefore, CG did not intend to attack Hamura, and just let Kagaya teach him a lesson later. Similarly, Kingxi didn't have any extra thoughts about Hamura in this world. He just let him continue to sleep and not come out to mess things up. Everything should be left to Kagaya in this world to deal with. So, Kingxi used Yin Yang release to set up several sealing barriers at the place where Otsutsuki Hamura's soul was sleeping, isolating Hamura from everything that happened in the ninja world. Afterwards, CG returned to the Otsutsuki castle, released his control over Otsutsuki Tonari, and left behind a wood-release clone to teach him. After all, Tonari is a pure Otsutsuki who has the potential to awaken the Rinnegan, and he also has a connection with CG to some extent, so we can't let him continue to go astray. What's more, CG also has certain ideas about this parallel universe. The ninja world is the nursery left for Kagaya in this world, but other planets, and even the fisherman Urashiki in this world, and other Otsutsuki, can become the nourishment for his continued growth. Also, CG will naturally never forget this world's Otsutsuki is Heike and his little 10 tails. Yoshi, you better hide well and don't let me catch you. If I catch you, I will scatter your ashes. Therefore, Kyoji was prepared to correct Otsutsuki Tonari's wrong ideas and teach him to become a qualified Otsutsuki, so that he could become his helper in doing things against the Otsutsuki clan in this world. Of course, after CG believes that Otsutsuki Tonari is qualified, he will give him a pair of pure enough Byakugan to allow him to awaken the Rinnegan and reach the 6 paths level. You know, if the target is those Otsutsuki, the more 6 paths level helpers the better. After all, from Otsutsuki is Heike's memory, we can know that there are still many powerful members in the Otsutsuki clan. Chapter 439. Kingxi gathered his wandering thoughts and straightened his expression. At the same time, a sharp light flashed in his reincarnated eyes. Currently, it is the first day of the Fourth Ninja World War, and the battle between the Allied ninja forces and White Zetsu and the Impure World forms has just begun. It is not yet time for him to enter the battlefield, so before that, Kingxi plans to go to the Hidden Mist Village to find the master of this world to learn more specific information. Of course, we also have to meet Black Zetsu, the big brother of this world. In addition, there is a technique that can awaken the deceased from the Pure Land within Kingxi's original plan, and it can also be obtained in this world. After all, the resurrection technique of Gato Samsara reincarnation technique requires a body to be successfully activated. Therefore, in order to resurrect his father Genji and mother Yukiko, CG needs to first use the Impure World reincarnation technique developed by the second Hokage Senju Tobirama to summon his parents from the Pure Land. Kingji learned from Black Zetsu that the Impure World reincarnation technique recorded in the sealed book of Konoha village was only an incomplete and basic version that could only be barely used. You should know that the original purpose of Senju Tobirama developing this technique was actually to use it in conjunction with his other forbidden technique multiplying detonating talisman. Therefore, the Impure World body he summoned does not have much strength except for its immortality. Moreover, Black Zetsu had witnessed Senju Tobirama use this move on the battlefield with his own eyes, so Kingxi knew that the Impure World reincarnation in the sealed book could not meet his requirements at present. The resurrection of his parents must be in the best condition. Therefore, this world's Impure World reincarnation technique improved by Orochimaru and the dream-making master Kabuto Yakushi, which can bring out almost most of the ninja's strength in his lifetime and can even strengthen the body after being born out of the Impure World in the form of modulation, perfectly meets Seiji's requirements. Therefore, Kingxi must get the Impure World reincarnation technique in Kabuto Yakushi's hands. The power of his eyes flowed, and Takamaji Ehara was activated again. Seiji's real figure slowly disappeared in the Otsutsuki castle, and then in the next second, he appeared at the space passage leading to the ninja world. Although with Kingji's current strength, it is not difficult to use perception to locate and then activate the eye technique to teleport to the ninja realm, or to directly travel back and forth between the ninja realm and the moon in the physical body, but since there is a more labor-saving way, Kingji will certainly not use it. Soon. Kingxi then passed through the space channel and officially arrived at the ninja world of this parallel time and space, and the place where he appeared was exactly that rather secret cave in the Land of Fire. Without any intention of stopping, Kingxi immediately released his perception, locked onto the location of the master in the Hidden Mist Village, and then activated the eye technique Takamaji Ehara again to perform space teleportation. In the Hidden Mist Village, at the residence of the Elder Master, Kingxi's figure appeared here from blurry to solid. Because Kingxi had no intention of concealing his aura, as soon as he appeared, he was immediately noticed by Yuanshi's bodyguards, the butler Bai and Chuan Bingui, as well as the Anbu team stationed in Yuanshi's house. Then, accompanied by Bai's loud shout, "Who is it?" Everyone surrounded the invading Kingxi in the middle, and at the same time, the chakra in their bodies began to flow rapidly, and the attack was ready to go. Of course they knew that the ability to appear in the village so strangely and silently, and even come directly to the home of the Yuanshi elder, was most likely the ability of time-space ninjutsu. And being able to master time-space ninjutsu also meant that the invader was likely to be very powerful. However, protecting the master is their duty and mission, and they cannot retreat. Therefore, even if it means sacrificing their lives, they must buy enough time for Elder Yuanshi to retreat. Seeing the house with exactly the same layout, as well as the nervous-looking Aoi and Gonbei in front of him, Kingxi couldn't help but reveal a faint gentle smile on his face. They were all familiar people. However, Kingxi had no intention of having a melodramatic recognition with them. There was no need for that, and it would be a waste of time and energy to explain. After all, things like parallel universes should be known only to a limited number of people. Uncle Bai. Uncle Ganbei. I'm sorry. After Kingxi apologized in his heart, his pupil power burst out directly, but under his precise control, it only exploded within a 1-meter range around his body. Samsaranga I, pressure. Thump. Accompanied by several consecutive sounds of people falling to the ground, the people who surrounded Kingxi were shocked and fainted by Kingxi in an instant without any resistance. Afterwards, Kingxi apologized to several people again in his heart, then walked into the house, ready to meet the Yuanxi of this world. In the reception room, Master Yuan calmly sat on the main seat, quietly waiting for Kingxi's arrival. The master, who is 90 years old this year, can be said to have experienced many ups and downs in the ninja world in the past 100 years. Therefore, he is no stranger to time-space ninjutsu. He knows very well that it is useless to escape in front of an enemy who knows time-space ninjutsu. So, this scene happened. Chapter 440. Looking at the old and unrecognizable Yuanxi in front of him, Kingxi couldn't help but reveal a complicated look in his eyes. It is now the 64th year of Kirigakure, and nearly 20 years have passed since his era. Therefore, on the one hand, Kingxi is very happy about the longevity of the master, but on the other hand, he also sighs at his excessive aging. However, it is enough that the master is still here. The 90-year-old master can definitely be considered a very long-lived ninja, whether in the ninja village era or in the warring states era. After all, the average lifespan of ninjas in the warring states period was only in their 30s. Although the average lifespan of ninjas increased after entering the ninja village era, it was only in their 40s. Therefore, apart from those old monsters who rely on various strange secret techniques to prolong their lifespan, Yuanxi can be said to be the longest-lived person in the current ninja world. Yuanxi swept his cloudy eyes over, and although his eyes were blurry due to old age, he could still clearly see the complex look of joy and sigh that flashed across Kingxi's eyes. This made Master Yuan a little confused. He found that this invader didn't seem to have any malicious intentions. However, when Master Yuan saw Kingxi's facial features clearly, suddenly, a flash of lightning flashed through his mind, and countless fragmented images, blurred scenes and distant yet familiar memories suddenly emerged like a flood. Decades ago, when the second Mizukage was in power, Yuanxi vaguely remembered that he had recommended a ninja from the Kagaya clan who had originally served under the second Mizukage, Hojiki Gengetsu, to become the captain of the newly formed second Mizukage Shadow Guard. The reason why the master took the initiative to recommend him to the second Mizukage Gengetsu Hojiki was because this Kagaya member named Kagaya Genji not only had very strong talent and strength, but more importantly, he was not as radical and reckless as other Kagaya members. He was like his good friend, the sixth elder of Kagaya, and belonged to the part of the Kagaya members who had brains. But none of this matters. The important thing is that Yuanxi vaguely remembered that his old subordinate later had a son with the daughter of his good friend. Although the child, named Kingxi, unfortunately died when he was about 3 years old due to some unknown reason, the feature of the child, that was the double horns on his forehead, left a deep impression on Yuanxi. After all, in Genji's extremely long life compared to other people in the ninja world, apart from the brothers Kinkaku and Ginkaku of the Kirigakure, only Genji's child Ciji had such a distinctive feature of double horns. However, the difference is that Jinjiao and Yinjiao's horns grow on the top of their heads, while Kingxi's horns grow in front of his forehead. Therefore, when he saw that Qingxi's face was somewhat similar to that of his friend's daughter, as well as the iconic double horns on his forehead, Yuanxi's long-buried memories suddenly emerged in his heart. At the same time, Master Yuan's seemingly calm heart was like being hit by a huge rock, causing strong waves like a raging storm. Moreover, he now had some uncertain guesses. That's right, although the development trajectory of this parallel ninja world is the same as the well-known Naruto world, there is indeed another CG. However, the CG here has long disappeared in the long river of ninja world history without making a single splash. Is it Kingxi? Master Yuan slowly asked tentatively with a somewhat hesitant and uncertain tone. There was no chance of evacuation anyway, so, provided that he didn't sense any bad intentions, he thought he could try to get some information. Seeing Master Yuan asking the question, Kingxi's brows twitched slightly, and then he understood. Did he recognize him? It seems that him also exists in this ninja world. However, Kingxi couldn't help but sigh that Yuanxi could react so quickly. He was indeed a veteran who had survived from the Warring States period, and his grandfather who had a deep connection with his family. He was really perceptive. King Si smiled faintly at the master without replying. His chakra moved slightly and he changed his clothes in an instant. What he changed into was his Mizu Cage God robe. When Master Yuan saw this, his narrowed eyes suddenly widened a lot, and his pupils contracted violently. What did he see? This intruder who was suspected to be the son of an old friend was actually wearing the Mizukage's divine robe of their hidden mist village. When King Si saw the shock on Master Yuan's face, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly again, and his reincarnation eyes lit up at the same time, and his pupil power spread out. Samsaranga I, illusion. King Si pulled the master into the illusion space and began a conversation with him. After all, verbal communication still wastes too much time. Using illusion to communicate directly with chakra saves time and effort. Chapter 441. After a while. After Ching Si released the illusion space, a look of disappointment appeared on his face. From Master Yuan, King Si has learned everything he wanted to know, but at the same time, he also learned information about himself and his family in this world. On the other hand, Master Yuan showed a complexity on his old face, but in a flash, his expression became excited again. After learning about Ching Si's origins and identity, he, who was already at the end of his life, finally saw the hope that the hidden mist village would truly become strong. There was silence again for a while. King Si's expression returned to calm. He did not speak to the master again, but left directly after bowing. After all, although this man was also a master, he was not the grandfather with whom he had had a long-term relationship. After leaving the hidden mist village, Kyoshi changed his attire back to the white robe of the Otsutsuki. Next, it was time to meet the big boy of this world. The time came to October 64th, Kirigakure 10, which was the second day after the Fourth Ninja World War broke out. The 9 Tails Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto and the 8 Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee broke through the barrier that protected them, and quickly rushed to the front battlefield with the ninja team led by Abarame Shimai who was responsible for stopping them. Moreover, the two of them were already a pair of old, weak, sick, and disabled duo, Nagato and Uchiha Itaki, who were controlled by Kabuto Yakushi and were responsible for blocking and capturing Jinchuriki. At the same time, the 1st Division of the Allied Ninja Forces, led by Captain Darui, was engaging in another fierce battle with the combined forces of White Zetsu and the Impure World formations at the coastal defense line. The 2nd Division of the Allied Ninja Forces, led by Captain Huang Tu, was fighting with the White Zetsu army on another line of defense. The 3rd Force of the Allied Ninja Forces, led by Captain Hitaki Kakashi, mainly deals with the strong men from various villages who have been resurrected by the Impure World reincarnation. And their main opponents are none other than the former trump cards of the Hidden Mist Village, the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, and some Bloodline Limit Ninjas. Finally, there is the 4th Division of the Allied Ninja Forces, led by the 5th Kazekage Gaara, and they are facing the 4 previous Kages, except the Hokage, who were resurrected by Kabuto Yakushi through the Impure World reincarnation. As for other surprise attack forces, medical forces, and the 5th Force of the Allied Ninja Forces led by Admiral Mifune of the Land of Iron, which was a special combat force composed of samurai and some ninjas with special abilities, they also fought fiercely with White Zetsu and the Impure World body again. Of course, these are all happening within King Si's powerful perception, but this is not King Si's goal. It can be said that King Si does not care about the developments on the battlefield. After all, this is a parallel universe and essentially has nothing to do with him as an outsider. Although there are quite a few Kirigakure ninjas among them, he must know that the Kirigakure village in this world is not his. Even if he has certain emotional inclinations, it would be ridiculous to let a 6 Paths level ninja be a babysitter. Even in his world, in the Hidden Mist village that belonged to him, he could at most use some strategies to reduce the casualties of the Hidden Mist ninjas as much as possible. Of course, that was only to avoid a lack of manpower after he unified the ninja world. He never thought of putting the Hidden Mist ninjas completely under his protection. Where the great names of various countries are located. Black Zetsu has already lurked here at this time, and his 1000-year plan to save his mother is about to be completed. Now only the 2-tailed beasts, the 8 tails and the 9 tails are missing, and the Gaiden demon statue can be resurrected to become the 10 tails. He can also wait for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the 10 tails Jinchuriki and let Kagaya Otsutsuki's consciousness break out directly from the seal of the 6 Paths, Chibaku Tensei on the moon. Therefore, he planned to take down the daimyo of the 5 major countries, thereby forcing the Allied Ninja Forces and the 5 Kage to hand over the 8 tails Jinchuriki and the 9 tails Jinchuriki. Ching Si, at this time, also came here following his perception. Outside the house where the daimyo lived, Seiji saw, as expected, Mei Terumi, who became the fifth Mizukage in this world, and a young man named Kojuro who followed behind her. He wore black-framed glasses, had short blue hair, and carried the twin swords, Aoi, which he was very familiar with. From Master Na Kingsi, he already knew that the elite ace force of their hidden mist village, the 7 ninja swordsmen, had almost lost their inheritance in this world and this era. Kingsi was quietly suspended in the sky, watching everything below, but when his eyes swept over the daimyo who were playing cards heartlessly in the house, a look of disgust flashed across his face. Suddenly, Kingsi's expression changed, and a hint of interest flashed across his sky-blue reincarnation eyes. This scent can be said to be an old acquaintance. Isn't that right, old man? Chapter 442. The front battlefield of the 4th Division of the Ninja Alliance. With the help of one of Naruto Uzumaki's shadow clones, the allied ninja forces successfully sealed the 4th Kazekage Raza, the 2nd Mizukage Hojiki Gengetsu, the 3rd Reikage Ai, and the 2nd Tsuchikage Mu after using the splitting technique after suffering considerable casualties. Therefore, just as the allied ninjas breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed, the other half of the 2nd generation Tsuchikage Mu that was not sealed was half crouching on the desert, forming the unseal with one hand and pressing the ground heavily with the other hand at the same time. Summoning technique. Impure world reincarnation. Ka. Fine cracks appeared on the wooden coffin. The next second, accompanied by a look of shock and the movement of stepping aside to dodge, the wooden coffin was violently broken open from the inside by the ethereal filth body. In the billowing white smoke, a hand wearing a black combat glove supported the edge of the wooden coffin. Then, a tall figure walked out of it. It was the former Shura of the ninja world, the rose of the battlefield, Uchiha Madara. It's finally done. Uchiha Madara's tone was a little emotional, but at the same time he was domineering and confident. Nagato, that kid, is growing up very smoothly. The 2nd generation Tsuchikage Mu, who was standing by, finally came to his senses at this time. I didn't expect that the one summoned this time would be. It seems that this impure world reincarnation practitioner is really familiar with war. Even you have been used. The 2nd generation Tsuchikage Mu looked at Uchiha Madara who had once humiliated him, with a barely perceptible hint of gloating in his tone. I never thought that the once invincible Shura of the ninja world would have such a day. At this moment, Wu no longer despised the despicable impure world reincarnation technique developed by the 2nd Hokage, Senju Tobirama, as he did when he was summoned. On the contrary, he was extremely happy in his heart. Let him be manipulated, otherwise he would not be able to see the scene where Uchiha Madara was also brought out of the world by the impure world master like him. After hearing Wu's words, Uchiha Madara also realized something was wrong. You said this is impure world reincarnation? Not the samsara reincarnation technique. For a moment, Uchiha Madara's face turned gloomy. Although things were still under his control, this was not quite the same as the plan he had originally left behind. However, the impure world reincarnation technique is not a big problem. Perhaps the sneaky caster hiding behind the scenes would not have thought that he, Uchiha Madara, could break the impure world reincarnation technique. The Hidden Cloud Village, the headquarters of the allied ninja forces. Just as the 4th Reikage Ai, the 5th Hokage Tsunade, Narashikaku and others were showing relief because the 9 Tails Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto's shadow clones arrived on the battlefield one after another and turned the situation around, making it look very favorable, the perception ninja Ao from the Hidden Mist Village interrupted them loudly with a slightly horrified tone. Please wait a moment. Gaara's 4th unit is at the location. Enemies appear. At the same time, the perception ninja in the 4th division of the allied ninja forces also discovered something. He looked horrified and pointed his finger not far away. What's going on? This level of chakra. Look over there. The first person to appear on the towering sand wall was the 2nd generation Tsuchikage Mu. When the 3rd Tsuchikage Onoki saw the figure of Mu, he instantly understood that they had only sealed half of the 2nd Tsuchikage Mu. But then, when the oppressive figure of Uchiha Madara, wearing red armor from the Warring States period, appeared, the 3rd Tsuchikage Onoki was so shocked that he was speechless for a long time. In his mind, he couldn't help but recall the scene when he and the 2nd Tsuchikage went to Konoha to prepare to form an alliance with Konoha, and were severely humiliated by Uchiha Madara. This guy is... Onoki's voice was slightly trembling, and cold sweat slid down his cheeks. Uchiha Madara. At the same time that King C sensed Uchiha Madara's chakra, Black Zetsu below also began his action. However, as soon as Black Zetsu appeared, he was noticed by the daimyo guards led by the 5th Mizukage Mei Terumi, who had been on high alert for a long time. Therefore, when Black Zetsu leaped forward and rushed quickly towards the daimyo's residence opposite the cliff, and was about to cross the cliff and land, a graceful blue figure suddenly rushed out and kicked Black Zetsu back heavily. Kiyoshi, who was high in the sky, almost laughed out loud when he saw Black Zetsu being humiliated. This style is truly worthy of Mei Terumi. Countless wooden vines broke out of the ground, flew into the air, and rushed towards the daimyo's guards. A large number of shurikens, kunao, and detonating tags, mixed in with the fire and wind jutsu, were shot madly at Black Zetsu, with the main focus being on numerical suppression. Therefore, even though Black Zetsu's wood release was very powerful, he was soon at a disadvantage due to the large numbers of the daimyo's guards, and the presence of a cage-level warrior named Mei Terumi who had mastered 2 bloodline limits, melting release and boiling release. However, at this moment, Black Zetsu sensed the chakra of the 9 Tails Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto and the 8 Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee who were rushing to the battlefield to provide support, so he immediately passed this information to Uchiha Obito, who had already found spare parts for the outer path statue but was still waiting to join the battle to capture the tailed beasts at any time. At the same time, Black Zetsu also had a hint of retreat in his heart. After all, the 8 Tails Jinchuriki and the 9 Tails Jinchuriki had already appeared on the battlefield. Then, continuing to capture or kill these daimyos would lose its original meaning. However, how could the daimyo's guards, led by Mei Terumi, let Black Zetsu escape so easily? You have to know that they had been waiting for a long time before they saw Black Zetsu coming to attack the daimyo. As a result, their offensive became even more fierce. Chapter 443. At this moment, a figure emitting golden chakra aura appeared on the battlefield, and then he held a chakra shuriken with terrifying chakra fluctuations and a buzzing sound in his hand and threw it towards Black Zetsu. It was under the 9 Tails chakra mode that a shadow clone of Uzumaki Naruto used his malicious perception to detect the movement on the battlefield and immediately arrived to provide support. When Black Zetsu saw the appearance of the 9 Tails Jinchuriki, whom he had just sensed not long ago, he was startled for a moment, but his reaction was not slow. A vine instantly wrapped around Uzumaki Naruto's right foot, causing the attack trajectory of Wind Style, Rasen Shuriken to deviate slightly, and in the end it only cut off a wood-style branch that spread from Black Zetsu's body. However, just when Black Zetsu breathed a sigh of relief, Kojuro, who had been accumulating strength for a long time, seized this fleeting opportunity and wielded his double swords, the Tei, which had become extremely huge after being released, and cut Black Zetsu in half with one blow. Is this the reincarnation of this generation's Ashura Chakra, the 9 Tails Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto? CG looked at the child of destiny in the Naruto world and muttered to himself with a little curiosity. I can only say that he is indeed worthy of being the prince with cheats. He hasn't even reached a true reconciliation with the 9-tailed fox, but his shadow clone already has such strength. And then, when CG saw the attack that Kojuro unleashed right after him, a hint of satisfaction appeared in his reincarnated eyes. This man, the only surviving member of the 7 ninja swordsmen who inherited the double swords, Aoi, has the talent and strength that can be regarded as the ceiling among ordinary ninjas. However, when King C's gaze swept over Terumi Mei, a hint of disgust inadvertently appeared in his eyes. I learned from the master that Mei Terumi's strength was almost at this level many years ago, but now it seems that she has only made some progress in the speed of launching bloodline ninjutsu over the years, and her overall strength has not improved much. It seems that Mei has become a little slack after becoming the Mizukage. King C sighed inwardly. It was such a waste of her unique talent of double bloodline limits in the ninja world. After all, in his opinion, even if the Mei Terumi in this world did not have the blessing of the Vulpix, she at least had the potential to develop bloodline elimination. Of course, this is just what Kyoji sees from his 6 paths level perspective. If you really want to talk about it seriously, Mei Terumi's strength is actually pretty good among the cage level. Although she is not as strong as the 3rd Tsuchikage no Ki and the 4th Reikage Ai, it should not be a problem for her to tie with the 5th Kazekage Gaara. In the headquarters of the allied shinobi forces, the 4th Reikage Ai and the 5th Hokage Tsunade were also sent to the front-line battlefield where the 4th Army was located by the Reikage Secretary Mabi using the Heaven Sending technique. At the same time, when Black Zetsu was cut in half by Kojuro, Genma Shiranui also received a message from Nara Shikaku. So, he immediately joined forces with Right Obizuki and Daiwashi to launch the Flying Thunder formation technique after Tsunade arrived at the front battlefield, and teleport the 5th Mizukage Mei Terumi directly to the front line. Shiranui Genma, Bazuraito, and Daiwashi were members of the Shadow Guard of the 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze, and are now serving as the guards of the 5th Hokage Tsunade. After all, if they didn't go, even if Uchiha Madara was in a playful mood, his few dances would almost wipe out the 4th division of the allied ninja forces. So, when Uchiha Madara and the 2nd Tsuchikage Mu, who was only half left after using the splitting technique, rushed towards the 3rd Tsuchikage Noki and the 5th Kazekage Gaara, who were already in very little condition, a dazzling white light flashed, and the 4th Raikage Ai and the 5th Hokage Tsunade, who were teleported over by the Heaven Sent technique, directly knocked Uchiha Madara and Mu back with one punch and one kick. The next second, Team Xianjian also used the Flying Thunder Array technique and arrived at the battlefield with the 5th Mizukage Mei Terumi. The battle between the current 5 Kage and Uchiha Madara is about to begin. The scene returns to the daimyo guards. Black Zetsu, who was pretending to be restrained by Kojuro's double swords, the tail clamp, had silently melted into a pool of black liquid and flowed into the ground. And Kingxi, who was high in the sky, saw Black Zetsu's actions and also started his action. So, just when the liquid Black Zetsu had just left the original place about 2 or 3 kilometers away, Ching Si, who had already landed in front of him in advance, used a restrained move of Immortal Technique Earth Escape, opening the earth and rising that did not attract any attention, and accurately lifted Black Zetsu out of the ground. Black Zetsu, who had thousands of years of experience in hiding, never expected that someone else would be able to discover his trace. Therefore, he was caught off guard and was immediately hit. He was thrown out directly in the state of a pool of black liquid mud. Beep. 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 Immediately afterwards, 1 second before Black Zetsu was about to land, 3 yin-yang escape black sticks were inserted around Black Zetsu in a triangle, forming a small barrier constructed by yin-yang escape. After landing on the ground, Black Zetsu quickly condensed his black body, and immediately activated his ability to escape from the barrier. However, the next moment, Black Zetsu was stunned, because his ability failed for the first time. At the same time, Kingxi seemed to see 3 big, confused question marks suddenly appearing above Black Zetsu's head. Chapter 444. Look carefully, this dark guy is called Xiaoshui. Just recently, he used the power of half of White Zetsu's body to launch a sneak attack on the daimyo of various countries. However, who would have thought that the ninja coalition had been prepared for him, and ultimately his sneak attack failed. However, it is gratifying that during the battle with the daimyo's guards, he sensed the chakra of the 8 tails and the 9 tails hidden by the coalition forces. Now, the masked man Uchiha Obito, who is known as Madara, must have set out to capture the 8 tails and the 9 tails Jinchuriki. In other words, the revival of the 10 tails is just around the corner, and victory is in sight. However, just when he quietly evacuated and prepared to go and witness the resurrection of the 10 tails with his own eyes. As a yin-yang escape creation who is proficient in concealment, hiding, and stealth, he was actually discovered and trapped. This put Black Zetsu in a dilemma where he didn't know what to do for a moment. After all, this kind of thing had never happened in thousands of years. Even the six-path sage Otsutsuki Hago Romo of that time never discovered that it was him who was secretly guiding and instigating his son Indra. So, waiting online, urgent. Kingxi's figure quietly appeared beside the barrier. He raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked at the hunter who was trapped by him. At the same time, a wicked smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This scene was not the first time. In his world, this was how he recognized Black Zetsu. Then, hello. Kingxi suddenly spoke, imitating Bai Zetsu's tone. At this moment, Black Zetsu, who was anxiously trying to find a way to get rid of the barrier, was startled when he heard a sound coming from the side without any warning. Someone could actually get close to him quietly without being discovered. Therefore, Black Zetsu immediately turned around and looked at Kingxi. And when Black Zetsu saw Ciji, he was struck by lightning. This is Hamura. Black Zetsu mistook Ciji for Otsutsuki Hamura. After all, although Kiyoshige's appearance is different from Otsutsuki Hamura, whether it is the double horns on the forehead or the unique temperament of the Otsutsuki clan, Kiyoshige and Otsutsuki Hamura are exactly the same. So, it's no wonder that Black Zetsu recognized the wrong person at first sight. A feeling called despair instantly spread in his heart. The plan to save his mother that he had planned for 1,000 years was about to succeed, So why did Otsutsuki Hamura appear at such a critical moment? Didn't he die after going to the moon? However, Black Zetsu quickly reacted, no. That's not right. You are not Hamura. If you look closely, you can see that CG in front of you looks different from Otsutsuki Hamura. However, after discovering this, Heiju became even more desperate. Even if this wasn't Hamura, he was still an Otsutsuki. Kagaya's wool. Kingxi raised his eyebrows and spoke calmly with a half-smile on his face. Although it was a question, his tone was extremely affirmative. Black Zetsu was shocked again. As an Otsutsuki, it was not surprising that the other party could see his true nature at a glance, but how could the other party confirm that he was the will of Otsutsuki Kagaya? Therefore, Black Zetsu thought that Kingxi was deceiving him. First, there was a flash of doubt in his eyes, 2 parts of confusion, 3 parts of shock, and 4 parts of surprise, and then all of them turned into 100% of stubbornness. I don't know what you are talking about. Ha! Kingxi didn't care but chuckled. It seems that no matter which world it is, Black Zetsu can be regarded as a true filial son. Looking at the constantly changing expressions on Heizetsu's dark face, Kingxi decided not to tease him anymore. After all, he was the big brother in this world, so he should be a little more tolerant to him. Then, CG removed the barrier that trapped Black Zetsu, and with a wave of his hand, injected a ball of chakra into his body. Let me formally introduce myself. My name is CG, Otsutsuki CG. A long time. After Black Zetsu saw everything from the chakra transmitted by CG, the look in his eyes when he looked at CG revealed an extremely complicated look. After all this time, this Otsutsuki was actually his teammate? And he was from another world, and he was his father in that world? But then, Black Zetsu's expression instantly changed from complexity to ecstasy. This is a thigh that can't be any thicker. Then there is no doubt about it. You must hold on. And you must hold on tightly. In this way, the mother's resurrection will be absolutely certain. Chapter 445. After further discussing the follow-up plans with Black Zetsu, Kingxi separated from Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu continued to go to the masked man Uchiha Obito, and while witnessing the resurrection of the 10 tails, he also secretly searched for the whereabouts of the other Rinnegan hidden by Uchiha Obito. On Kingxi's side, the troops were divided into 2 groups. On one side, his real body went to watch the fierce fight between Uchiha Madara and the 5 Cage. On the other side, a shadow clone went to find Kabuto Yakushi, who used the immortal reincarnation technique and borrow this improved version of the immortal reincarnation technique from him. The frontline battlefield of the 4th Division of the Ninja Alliance. As the space twisted slightly, Kingxi's figure appeared silently in the sky. At this time, the battle between the 5 Cage and Uchiha Madara had already broken out for a while. The strength of Old Banta's impure world reincarnation is very high. Kingxi, who was watching the battle from high in the sky, commented, with a hint of admiration in his tone. Of course, this praise was directed at Kabuto Yakushi, who performed the impure world reincarnation technique, not Uchiha Madara. After all, the impure world Madara below was only slightly stronger than the old Madara he killed. Kingxi saw through the true nature of Uchiha Madara's impure world body at a glance. The Hashirama cells that were specially added to the sacrifice by Kabuto Yakushi were the reason why Uchiha Madara could exert such strength. It can be said that if impure world Madara did not have the almost perpetual motion chakra unique to the impure world body and the characteristics that it cannot be killed and can only be sealed, even if he could use part of the power of the Rinnegan, he could at most be on par with Senagaku, who learned fairy arts in the world of CG. However, even so, Kingxi did not take it too seriously. Perhaps, only 6 Paths Madara, who became the Jinchuriki of the 10 Tails, could be taken seriously by the current CG and would be interested in fighting him. At this moment, Kingxi's expression changed, and in his perception, several chakra auras belonging to the tailed beasts appeared instantly. Kingxi turned his head to look in the direction he sensed. His Rinnegan first lit up with a bright sky blue light, then returned to normal in an instant, and he understood at the same time. This is a battle between the Jinchuriki of the 8 tails and the 9 tails and the other Jinchuriki of the tailed beasts who were resurrected by the impure world reincarnation. The masked man Uchiha Obito is also a man with quite a few ideas. He actually turned the impure world reincarnation bodies of the tailed beasts into 6 Paths clone. However, Kyoshi had no intention of watching the fight. After all, he had beaten up several tailed beasts, and a battle between tailed beasts was not as interesting as the battle between the 5 Cage and Uchiha Madara. Although his little brother Yagura's impure world form is over there, CG doesn't want to meet the Yagura of this world at all. After all, Yagura's actions are simply embarrassing for the Mizu Cage. As a perfect Jinkraki, he can actually be controlled by the Sharingan illusion, and even the three-tailed Isabu in his body is controlled together. Not to mention that China no Hojumi of this world died in Yagura's massacre of the bloodline family. Suddenly, King C's eyebrows raised again, and then he showed a satisfied smile. The improved version of Impure World Reincarnation Technique was obtained. It turned out that after Seiji's shadow clone locked onto the location where Kabuto Yakushi was hiding, he immediately used the eye technique Takamaji Ehara to teleport behind Kabuto Yakushi, and before Kabuto Yakushi could sense the danger and take any action, he used a Rinnegan pressure to suppress him in place, making him unable to move. So, what happened next was a natural progression. Although Kyoshi is not an expert in illusion, the Rinnegan has its own illusion ability. Moreover, under the crushing strength, even if it was just a shadow clone of Kyoshi, Kabuto Yakushi had no power to resist and instantly fell under the illusion of the Rinnegan. Afterwards, he used the Spirit Ball to control Kabuto Yakushi and obtained the complete Impure World Reincarnation Technique from him. Of course, CG also found the coordinates of the Ryokai Cave in Kabuto Yakushi's memory, which had not been found in his world. Immediately, after sealing Kabuto Yakushi's memory, King C's shadow clone dissipated on its own initiative. As for CG, he would not help the allied ninja forces to stop the Impure World Reincarnation Technique. If he did not have a need for Impure World Reincarnation, he would not even attack Kabuto Yakushi. After all, Kabuto Yakushi was also a teammate of Black Zetsu at this time, and Black Zetsu and CG were in the same group. Chapter 446. The Battlefield Below. As Uchiha Madara used the combination of Wood Style, Flower Tree World Advent and Fire Style, Great Fire Annihilation, the 5 Kage, who had already been paralyzed by inhaling pollen, instantly fell under the extreme high temperature. Ching Si couldn't help but shake his head slightly when seeing this. This batch of 5 Kage weren't very good. It seemed like the old men were falling down one after another without them even having to exert much strength. However, just as CG was about to quietly take Mei Terumi away, he suddenly discovered that the third Tsuchikage Noki had stood up again, with chakra flowing rapidly in his body. Therefore, King C stopped his actions and continued to stay in the sky, quietly watching the development of the battle. Chan escaped the original realm peeling technique. A dazzling white beam of light suddenly burst out, streaking across the sky, and then swept in all directions under Noki's control. Oh wow! It's worthy of being a bloodline elimination. Kyoshi's eyes lit up. In his world, he had never fought with the third Tsuchikage Noki before, so this was the first time he saw the power of dust release with his own eyes. Of course, it was just a compliment. After all, no matter how powerful dust release was, it couldn't threaten Ching Si, who had the ability to seal and absorb seals. Uchiha Madara was caught off guard by Onoki's sudden outburst, and his chest was instantly hit by the dust release, revealing the face of Hashirama Senju on his chest. However, for Kyoshi, who was watching the fight, he knew clearly that Uchiha Madara's move was most likely intentional. His purpose was probably to show off the gay relationship between him and Senju Hashirama to the 5 Kage. You know, Uchiha Madara, who can use the power of the Rinnegan in the Impure World Reincarnation state, has the ability to absorb ninjutsu just like him. And sure enough, the next second, Uchiha proudly pointed at Hashirama Senju on his chest, and while recounting some of his past events with Hashirama Senju, he mocked the 5th Hokage Tsunade, the descendant of Hashirama Senju. After all, in this world, in the eyes of Uchiha Madara, who has never fought with Kyoshi, except for Hashirama Senju, other ninjas can be said to be traitors. How could Tsunade, with her hot temper, tolerate the ridicule from the old man Uchiha Madara? So, she activated the 100 Healings technique and rushed to Uchiha Madara, and threw a powerful punch with her hand. At the same time, seeing Tsunade taking action, the other 4 Kage followed Tsunade and rushed towards Uchiha Madara. Faced with Tsunade's heavy punch, Uchiha Madara, who did not take Tsunade, an ordinary medical ninja, seriously, was too lazy to even dodge and simply used the initial stage of Susanoo to defend himself. The materialized blue ribs blocked Tsunade's fist in front of Uchiha Madara. However, to Uchiha Madara's surprise, the next second, accompanied by a crackling sound, fine and dense cracks appeared on the blue ribs of Susanoo. Uchiha Madara saw this and became more serious. Not as fast as the Raikage, but still stronger than the Raikage? It seems that the descendants of Hashirama Senju are not so useless. So, he did not continue to be arrogant, but instead jumped back, and at the same time, he formed the yin seal with his hands while jumping high. Fire style, Great Fire Extinction. A huge fireball like a falling meteorite, emitting extremely high temperature and dazzling flames, crashed to the ground, and then quickly spread towards Tsunade's position. In a blink of an eye, it spread to form a surging and unstoppable sea of fire. Tsunade adjusted her posture and stood in place, with no intention of dodging at all, because her teammates had already arrived. Mei Terumi quickly passed Tsunade and formed seals with both hands, water style, water formation pillar. An equally huge water ball spewed out from Mei Terumi's mouth and spread out in all directions as it landed on the ground, instantly suppressing Uchihamadara's fire escape. Seeing this scene, Kingxi couldn't help but nod secretly in his heart. Terumi Mei's performance of water escape was quite impressive. Although Uchihamadara was in a playful mood, he did not hold back at all in this fire release. Moreover, CG had experienced the strength of his fire release when he fought against old Madara. It can only be said that Mei Terumi is indeed worthy of the title of Mizukage. After suppressing Uchihamadara's fire style, Terumi Mei kept moving her hands, changing her seals one after another, and jumped up in one step. Water style, Water Dragon Bullet. In an instant, a huge water dragon suddenly rose from the water column, roared and rushed towards Uchihamadara who was already falling in the air, and lifted him up again. Uchihamadara was blown away by the water dragon bullet and had nowhere to gain leverage for a moment. He was forced to be pushed higher by the water dragon bullet. At this time, the fourth Reikage AI and the third Tsuchikage Onoki who was riding on him appeared behind Uchihamadara. Earth Escape Technique, Heavy Rock Technique. Ninjutsu, Lightning Abuse Level Chomai. Onoki's Earth Escape greatly enhanced the power of AI's moves. With the tacit cooperation of the two, cracks appeared again on Uchihamadara's Susanoo that had just been repaired. Chapter 447. At the same time, Tsunade also flew up and came to the front of Uchihamadara, then coordinated with AI and Onoki's combined attack, stomped heavily, completely shattered Uchihamadara's initial stage Susanoo, and kicked him away. Boom! Uchihamadara was blown away by Tsunade's powerful force. His body streaked through the air like a cannonball, fell to the ground with a bang, and continued to move backwards along the ground, leaving a long trail. Finally, he hit a mountain, creating a huge dent and raising large amounts of dust. After a while, when the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, Uchihamadara's steady voice came out, "She is indeed not a weak woman." At this moment, he finally took Tsunade, the descendant of Hashirama Senju, seriously. However, that was all. For him, fighting with the 5 Kage was just a fun to pass the time before his resurrection. The image of his beloved best friend Senju Hashirama flashed through his mind, and Uchihamadara's expression became a little complicated. "Hashirama. I will prove that I am right." The battle broke out again in an instant. With the cooperation of several cages, Tsunade found the right opportunity this time and smashed the right half of Uchihamadara's body with one punch. For a moment, the dirty world flew in the air. "Kazekage! Now's the time!" AI shouted. After a long battle, they finally saw the hope of defeating and sealing Uchihamadara. The fifth Kazekage Gaara, who had been assisting the other cages on the side, finally showed his edge. In an instant, with Gaara's chakra burst, endless sand enveloped the impure world Madara, whose half of his body was broken and was recovering. Magnetic Escape Desert Layer Burial Seal. The official novel Gaara's Secret, Sand Fantasy clearly states that Gaara possesses the bloodline limit of magnetic escape inherited from the fourth Kazekage Raza. The seal is complete. Gaara maintained the posture of making hand seals and simultaneously announced the good news to the other cages. "Very good." Tsunade smiled. AI, Dunaki, and Mei Terumi, who were scattered nearby, also revealed a relieved smile. However, Kingxi, who was watching the battle from high in the sky, shook his head slightly. It was too early for the 5 Kage to be happy. How could old Madara be sealed so easily? In the previous battle, Uchihamadara didn't even put up a decent resistance. This was not like his style at all. Not to mention, CG has already seen the figure of another Uchihamadara hiding underground through the Rinnegan. He is also able to use wood release and he already knows clearly that the one just sealed by Gaara is a wood release clone of Uchihamadara. Perhaps the pressure that Uchihamadara put on the 5 Kage was too great, causing these battle-hardened Kage to relax their vigilance at such a critical moment. King Si looked at the battlefield below with interest. He could imagine what Uchiha Madara would do next. Sure enough, just as King Ji expected, just when the 5 Kage thought the situation was settled and relaxed, a giant blue chakra blade suddenly broke out of the ground and directly pierced through the waist and abdomen of Tsunade, who was half crouching on the ground, then strung it on the giant chakra blade and slowly lifted it up. Seeing Tsunade suddenly suffer a serious injury, extremely shocked expressions appeared on the faces of the other cages in an instant. They had never expected such a situation to happen. Tsunade, who was pierced, also had a look of disbelief on her face. Her pupils kept trembling and blood was oozing out from the wound. Afterwards, Uchiha Madara's figure slowly emerged from the ground, and then he began his explanation to the cages, with a hint of pride and boasting in his tone. Hearing Uchiha Madara's nonsense, King Si couldn't help but have a big question mark rising above his head. You are the only one who can completely see through Senju Hashirama's wood-style clone? Then how did Senju Hashirama kill you? In his Heiki's memory, Kyoji knew how Uchiha Madara was killed by Senju Hashirama in the Battle of the Valley of the End. Therefore, he was somewhat skeptical about Uchiha Madara's bragging. Although it is possible that Uchiha Madara really saw through the wood-release clone completely, but he pretended to be unaware because he wanted to obtain Hashirama Senju's cells and was stabbed to death by Hashirama Senju in the back. But Kyoji believed that with Uchiha Madara's personality, if he could defeat Hashirama Senju, he probably would not choose this method of faking his death to obtain Hashirama's cells. Okay. Now the other cages are all finished. Uchiha Madara's tone was full of joy after a successful prank. It was time to end this farce of killing time. Uchiha Madara's eyes were full of scrutiny as he scanned the 4 cages one by one. So, which one should we kill first? Chapter 448. However, at this moment, Tsunade, who was pierced through the body by the blade of Susanoo and hung in the air, suddenly shouted loudly. The next second, accompanied by the burst of chakra, Tsunade used a hand knife to directly split the blade of Susanoo. Tsunade's sudden outburst also made Uchiha Madara's pupils dilate instantly. It was the first time he was shocked in his battle with the 5 Kage. It can be said that in the previous battles, the rhythm was actually always controlled by Uchiha Madara, and everything that happened in the battle was within Uchiha Madara's expectations. However, Tsunade's resurrection was beyond his expectations. In his opinion, his attack just now was enough to kill Tsunade directly. Of course, Uchiha Madara, who had the strength to back him up, was only surprised for a moment. When Tsunade picked up the broken half of the blade and smashed it at him, he had already regained his composure. Therefore, after Tsunade's attack was blocked by Susanoo, Uchiha Madara controlled Susanoo to grow an arm, and threw several huge chakra megatama shining with blue light at Tsunade's face. Susanoo, Yasaka's megatama. The huge megatama, with huge kinetic energy, hit Tsunade and knocked her away in an instant. Boom! Accompanied by an explosive roar, Tsunade spurted blood from her mouth and was thrown out at an alarming speed. Her body drew a straight arc in the air, piercing through countless extremely thick wood vines along the way, and fell heavily to the ground, directly smashing a huge deep pit in the ground. Everything nearby collapsed under the strong impact, raising a cloud of dust and broken soil. Thick smoke rose up in an instant, covering the injured Tsunade. The other 4 Kage saw that Tsunade was not seriously injured, but took advantage of the situation to counterattack Uchiha Madara. They all showed expressions even more shocked than before. However, when Tsunade was beaten and vomited blood and flew away, their expressions changed instantly again. It's not that they didn't want to support Tsunade, but everything happened too quickly. Before they could make any move, Tsunade and Uchiha Madara had already completed this short round of fighting. Therefore, when several Kage just wanted to coordinate with Tsunade to launch an attack, Tsunade had already been knocked away by Uchiha Madara's Yasaka Megatama. Uchiha Madara was full of confidence and thought that he had completely killed Tsunade this time. After all, he was very confident in his attack just now. Even if he came in person, he might not be able to completely withstand this level of close attack. However, Uchiha Madara's expression changed immediately afterwards, revealing a hint of surprise. Hey! At the place where Tsunade fell to the ground, a figure looming in the smoke and dust lifted up a huge stone wall, and then slowly stood up while holding the stone wall. In just a few seconds, Tsunade almost recovered. Only the torn clothes proved that she had indeed suffered fatal injuries. Why are you still able to move? Uchiha Madara asked, with confusion in his tone. Apart from Hashirama Senju, He had never seen any other ninja with such a strong recovery ability. You know, his attacks are all aimed at the vital points. However, when white steam rose from Tsunade's wounds the next second, Uchiha Madara immediately reacted, I see. The body can be regenerated without hand seals. It was the technique just now that achieved the same effect as Hashirama's ability. But, do you think you can kill me with my jutsu? Ching Si, who was watching the battle from high above, instantly saw through the essence of Tsunade's 100 healings technique and completed the copy. The ultimate Yang escape technique, which consumes vitality to make cells divide rapidly and thus allow the body to regenerate quickly. There was a hint of admiration in Kingxi's tone. Although this recovery ability could only be considered passive for him, this technique could obviously be learned by others, of course, provided that the amount of chakra reached the required level. And this is the most important thing for Kingxi. After all, just because he can't use it doesn't mean that others can't use it. It also means that his Kirigakure has a deeper foundation. Just when CG was thinking about which ninjas in his hidden mist village were more suitable for the 100 healings technique, Onoki had quietly appeared behind Uchiha Madara, and then raised his hand and used a dust release. Chan escaped the original realm peeling technique. A thick beam of light, flashing with dazzling white light, attacked Uchiha Madara from behind. However, the next second, Uchiha Madara calmly raised his hand, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. Are you getting old and confused? Onoki. The Rinnegan can absorb all ninjutsu. This ninjutsu is ineffective against me. If you want to kill me, the only way is to use physical skills to knock me down and then seal me. Uchiha Madara sneered and said sarcastically. When Kingxi saw Onoki's actions, he couldn't help but feel secretly happy. Uchiha Madara's ridicule of Onoki made him very comfortable. He had not forgotten how Onoki mocked him during the joint Chunin exam. If the Uegakure village wasn't too far away from the Kirigakure village and he didn't want to start a war with all the ninja villages at the same time, he would have led his team to destroy the Uegakure village first and then scattered Noki's ashes. However, Onoki's death is not far away. After taking over the sand village, one of Kyoshi's next targets will be the land of earth and the Uegakure village within it. By then, Kyoshi will definitely go to the battlefield in person to teach Onoki a lesson about what it means to speak ill of others. Seeing dust release being absorbed by Uchiha Madara, Onoki's face was full of disbelief and a few drops of cold sweat unconsciously slid down his cheeks. Not long ago, his dust release clearly hit Uchiha Madara's chest, which made him think that his bloodline elimination dust release, which was different from ordinary escape techniques and bloodline limit ninjutsu, could be effective. However, the cold reality before him dealt him a heavy blow. His dust release was blatantly absorbed by the power of the Rinnegan. Chapter 449. Het. Uchiha Madara chuckled, his face full of disdain, and glanced at Onoki who was floating in the air. Onoki's shocked expression successfully pleased him, and he also knew what Onoki was thinking at this moment. I deliberately showed you Hashirama's face, just to undermine your morale. But it actually boosted your morale. Uchiha Madara explained lightly. At this time, Tsunade, who had recovered, suddenly asked Uchiha Madara, you used wood release clone to deceive the five of us, there is no doubt about that. But from another perspective, does this also mean that you have been forced by our attack to use the clone? I was right, wasn't I? Tsunade's mouth curled up into a confident smile. Uchiha Madara looked around at the 5 cage and nodded slightly in approval, after all, it's 5 against 1. When Kingxi heard this, he almost laughed out loud. Is Tsunade feeling too good about herself? It is obvious that Uchiha Madara is just playing around and is too disdainful to fight with you guys seriously. You know, from beginning to end, he never even displayed the complete form of Susanoo, and he didn't even use many of the Rinnegan's eye techniques. However, the next second, Kingxi's face darkened, because Terumi Mei immediately retorted to Uchiha Madara, even if it's 5-1, we must win. Don't say we are despicable. After all, we recognize your terrifying strength. Because you are Uchiha Madara. Kingxi held his forehead with one hand and sighed helplessly. This little Ming was really simple and silly cute. It was obvious that he had never been beaten. When Uchiha Madara heard what Mei Terumi said, he also sighed, and couldn't help feeling a little funny and absurd in his heart. You're out of breath when I say you're fat, right? Well, then I'll let you experience what 5 against 1 means. Of course I won't say you are mean. Uchiha Madara shook his head slightly. At this moment, he was still in a playful mood, 5 to 1. The number of people is just right for playing the game. After saying that, Uchiha Madara formed hand seals and created 25 wood release clones. Then his wood release clones formed groups of 5 and surrounded the 5 cage one by one. This is 5 against 1. Don't ever say I'm despicable. After all, you are the 5 cage. Uchiha Madara said with a slightly teasing and sarcastic tone. He directly returned what Mei Terumi had said to her exactly as it was. High in the sky, Kyoshi looked down at Uchiha Madara's 25 wood release clones using Susanoo, besieging the 5 cage. One could only say that he was worthy of being Uchiha Madara. Even the other Indra Chakra reincarnations that Asahiki had seen in his memory had never been able to do so. Even the clone can use Susanoo easily, which shows that Uchiha Madara has developed the Sharingan to a very deep level. Suddenly, Kingxi frowned, and saw that Terumi Mei, who was moving quickly below, was hit by a punch from the Susanoo controlled by one of the wood release clones and flew away before she could dodge. Although Gaara used sand to save Mei Terumi in time and prevented her from being hit by subsequent attacks, Mei Terumi was still seriously injured. After all, even if it was just an ordinary punch from Susanoo, it was not something that her mortal body could easily take on. He's too strong. There was a slight tremor in Terumi Mei's voice. She no longer had the confidence she had when she just said those bold words to Uchiha Madara about 5 against 1. After just a few rounds, she was almost defeated by Uchiha Madara, who had not even taken it seriously. How should we deal with this kind of enemy? Gaara on the side was also a little discouraged, and didn't know what to do for a moment. Soon after, Tsunade could no longer hold on because she had consumed a large amount of her vitality to continuously regenerate her body. After spitting out a mouthful of scarlet blood, she fell to the ground weakly. And the next second, Ai was also restrained by Susanoo, and then under a glare from Uchiha Madara, she fell into the illusion of the eternal Mangeki Sharingan. In just a few seconds, the 4 shadows were defeated one after another. Fortunately, Onoki had rich combat experience. When Ai was about to be killed, he used Earth Escape to save him in time and helped Ai break the illusion. Seeing that Mei Terumi was about to lose her confidence after being beaten, Kingxi reluctantly stood up from his cross-legged sitting position and prepared to leave. He has to get off the field. If the fight continues like this, the 5th Mizukage Mei Terumi might have her mind broken by Uchiha Madara's beating. He must give Mei Terumi a perfect demonstration. You know, in this ninja world, no one knows how to beat old Bantu better than him. Even if Hashirama Senju is resurrected, it won't work. Of course, Kingxi did not deny that he was also eager to make a move when he saw old man Bantu pretending to be so cool. Although in his world, he had already sent old Bantu to the Pure Land, but now that he had the chance to beat him up again, Kingxi would of course do it. However, it is limited to beating up old Bantu. After all, the resurrection of Kaguya in this world still requires the resurrection of old Bantu and his becoming the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. Moreover, I am also looking forward to the famous scene where Seiji says some heartfelt words to Black Zetsu and old Bantu. Cages. Stand up. At this critical moment of life and death. Don't say discouraging words. Unaki shouted loudly. Since we carry the title of Shadow, we must live up to the trust placed in us. Moreover, this is a battle entrusted to us by all ninjas. We must win. So, just when Seiji was ready to teleport to Mei Terumi's side, Unaki, who had been giving the other cages some chicken soup, suddenly exploded. Chen escape boundary peeling technique. A dazzling white cube flew out from in front of Onoki and went towards the 25 huge Susanos in front at a high speed. The next moment, the cube suddenly became larger, encompassing all the Susanos and then decomposing them all. Uchiha Madara's real body was also hit by the dust release, which instantly expanded the attack range, and half of his body disappeared. Chapter 450. Immediately afterwards, when the light of the dust release disappeared, a ferocious water cage flashing with lightning roared and wrapped around Uchiha Madara, whose body was still being repaired by the impure world reincarnation technique. It was the combined ninjutsu Thunder Water Dragon Bullet used by Mei Terumi and Ai. Ha! You never learned your lesson. Uchiha Madara was not at all panicked. He directly activated the power of the Rinnegan and quickly absorbed the chakra in the Thunder Water Dragon Bullet. However, at this moment, his expression suddenly froze and he realized something was wrong. I saw a large amount of sand suddenly emerged from the water and attached to various parts of his body in an instant. Then, after the sand covered Uchiha Madara's body, several sealing talismans also appeared. It turned out that while Ai and Mei Terumi were cooperating with each other to launch a combined ninjutsu attack, Gaara was also not idle. He hid the sealing talisman in the sand, and then mixed the sand into the Thunder Water Dragon bullet, waiting for an opportunity to complete the attack on Uchihamadara. Of course, this move was also just a feint. In their battle plan, once Uchihamadara chooses to absorb the chakra in the sand, he will not have enough time to absorb the Thunder Water Dragon bullet, and will be controlled on the spot by the paralyzing attribute of the Thunder Water Dragon bullet. In this way, Onoki's dust release will cause enough damage to Uchihamadara, buying them enough time to seal him. Therefore, seeing everything unfold as they planned, the 5 Kage's eyes flickered and their confidence returned. This is the cooperation among the 5 of them. This is the full strength of the 5 Kage. So that's how it is. You're worthy of being the 5 Kage. Uchihamadara was not as flustered as the 5 Kage had expected. On the contrary, his tone was still very calm. However, at this moment, he finally expressed his formal recognition of the 5 Kage's cooperation in his heart. Of course, as the price of recognition, he has to be serious. Then, I, Uchihamadara, will also fight with all my strength. The domineering voice, with the blessing of chakra, reached the ears of the 5 Kage and echoed in the battlefield that was already in ruins. The next second, several blue rays of light, like sharp swords, shattered the sand with sealing talismans covering Uchihamadara's body, and the Thunder Water Dragon bomb on the periphery was also instantly evaporated at this moment. The terrifying chakra, like a surging torrent, violently burst out from where Uchihamadara was, no matter if it's the 5 Kage or anything else. It's all in vain. In front of my perfect form of Susanoo. Along with Uchihamadara's cold shout, an extremely huge blue giant stood in front of the 5 Kage. It's not over yet. Stop. Then, with the continued output of eye power and chakra, the azure giant was covered with a thick layer of Crotengu armor, and a pair of wings grew on his back. Old Spotted Man is getting serious now. Ching Si murmured in a low voice when he saw the complete Susanoo standing upright on the ground, but this is a little more interesting. I just wonder what kind of expression Old Spotted Man will have when he faces me later. Thinking of this, King Si couldn't help but reveal a slightly evil smile on his face. Just like Uchihamadara had been playing with the 5 Kage before, Uchihamadara in his current state is also the one being played with in front of CG. Looking at the complete form of Susanoo in front of them, which was as tall as a mountain and blocked out the sky, the confidence of the 5 Kage, which had just risen up, suffered another blow. This natural disaster-like scene, and the huge gap that was obvious without even trying, made them completely lose the courage to resist. I've said it before. The only one who can stop me is Hashirama. But that guy is no longer here. Uchihamadara's figure appeared in the crystal on the forehead of the complete form of Susanoo, and he continued to attack the 5 Kage with words. There was an indescribable arrogance in his tone, and a barely perceptible trace of nostalgia for his good friend. But this may be good news for you. Because Uchihamadara added fuel to the fire of the 5 Kage. At the same time, he controlled Susanoo and drew his sword to slash at the distant mountain. After all, it's just me, so the scope of destruction will be smaller. The strong wind and aftermath created by Uchihamadara's casual attack instantly blew the 5 Kage away. When the 5 Kage stabilized their bodies and looked back to see the mountain in the distance that was destroyed by a single sword, they were stunned and speechless for a long time, with big drops of cold sweat streaming down their faces. Even though the 5 Kage had already overestimated the destructive power of Uchihamadara's complete form of Susanoo, the damage caused by this seemingly ordinary attack was still far beyond their understanding. How could it be? The mountain was split in two. Terumi Mei's voice trembled. After being beaten repeatedly by Uchihamadara, she could no longer utter any tough words. Even Onoki, who had the strongest fighting spirit, couldn't help but doubt his life at this moment. He once again recalled the experience when he and his teacher, the second-generation Otsutsuki Matsuki, went to Konoha to form an alliance and were humiliated and dominated by Uchihamadara. Everything is over. You 5 Kage, along with your own paths, will be shattered together by the power of all things. Uchihamadara declared his victory to the 5 Kage, and at the same time, the complete form of Susanoo raised his sword and chopped down with force. However, if nothing unexpected happens, then it is likely that something unexpected will happen. At this critical moment, the half-chopped chakra sword in the hand of the complete form of Susanoo suddenly disappeared into thin air. Immediately afterwards, the solidified chakra of the complete form of Susanoo suddenly became thinner like smoke blown away by the wind, and then dissipated completely. At the same time, Uchiha Madara's body also lit up with a faint white light. The space channel had already opened in front of him, and Kingsley, who was ready to rescue Mei Terumi the moment Uchiha Madara's attack fell, saw this scene and could not help but narrow his eyes slightly, and at the same time waved his hand to close the space channel again. Although this was the first time that Kingsley had seen this improved version of the impure world reincarnation technique, it did not prevent Kingsley from recognizing that this was a sign that the impure world reincarnation technique had been lifted. Because, in his reincarnated eyes, he could clearly see that the soul of Uchiha Madara, which was originally stabilized in the impure world body, was now like a rootless duckweed, trying to escape from this impure world body. If Uchiha Madara had not relied on his powerful eye power to stabilize his body, he would probably have returned to the Pure Land by now.